Good afternoon, and welcome to our July 26, 2022 Board Business Meeting. Welcome to our board members, MCPS staff, and members of our community who are joining us here today, and to those who are watching this meeting via live stream on the MCPS website and MCPS TV. Let us begin by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call the roll to recognize board members and establish that we have a quorum. Lynn is joining us via Zoom.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay. Mr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Mandrowski.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Silvestri.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Daka.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Evans.
Good afternoon.
And Dr. Joftis.
Hi, everybody.
Now we can begin the meeting with the approval of the revised agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you. This time I'll call on Dr. McKnight.
Thank you, President Wolf. I move forward the monthly human resources report for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. I do have a few resolutions that I'd like to begin sharing. Whereas the death on May 25th of Ms. Lisa Bain, school secretary at Lakelands Park Middle School, has deeply saddened the staff, students, and members of the Board of Education. During her 13 years, Mrs. Bain worked for Montgomery County Public Schools. She was a highly dedicated employee. In her role as school secretary, Mrs. Bain consistently demonstrated her genuine concern for the students, their families, and other staff members. She maintained a professional, friendly, and supportive demeanor in the front office. Mrs. Bain consistently demonstrated professionalism and exceptional interpersonal skills. She continuously worked to expand her knowledge in a wide range of areas critical to her role and support of the school. Mrs. Bain was always eager to help provide support in a variety of ways. She was a valued colleague and team member who got along very well with others. Now, therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools express our sorrow at the death of Mrs. Bain and extend our deepest sympathy to her family.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. The death on June 2nd, 2022 of Ms. Joanna Collinan, bus route supervisor at West Farm Administration, has deeply saddened the staff, students, and members of the Board of Education. During her 7.9 years, Ms. Collinan worked for Montgomery County Public Schools. She was dedicated to meeting the expectations of the schools and the community while prioritizing students' needs. She was committed fully to student safety on their journeys to and from school. She consistently demonstrated her professionalism and was available and ready to help when needed. Mrs. Collinan handled difficult situations tactfully. She was perceptive in her recognition of problems and their implications and implemented efficient and quick solutions. Mrs. Collinan regularly met with her staff to garner support and resolve bus-related issues. Due to her professionalism, operations ran smoothly and students were transported to and from school on time. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools express our sorrow at the death of Mrs. Collinan and extend deepest sympathy to her family.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And my final resolution, the death on June 4th, 2022 of Mr. Keith Hill Sr., building service worker at John Poole Middle School, has deeply saddened the staff, students, and members of the Board of Education. During the 3.3 years Mr. Hill worked for Montgomery County Public Schools, he was committed to the success of every student and understood his role in helping to ensure that success. He consistently went above and beyond his regular duties by ensuring the safety and maintenance of the school. He maintained a positive and friendly attitude and always was ready to help in any way he could. Mr. Hill always conducted himself in a professional manner. He had a strong attendance record and always worked effectively with stakeholders. As a result, Mr. Hill was able to contribute to the overall camaraderie of the building service team and the school community as a whole. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools express our sorrow at the death of Mr. Hill and extend deepest sympathy to his family.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll move on to our recommended appointments. Our first appointment is Ms. Kimberly R. Fields as Director in the Department of Business Information Services in the Office of Strategic Initiatives. Joining her virtually is her family member, Eloise Young. Mrs. Field brings to MCPS more than 16 years of experience as a Business and Information Technology Department Chair, Technology Support Specialist, and most recently as an Information Technology Project Manager, leading the implementation of critical enterprise-wide solutions. Ms. Fields looks forward to joining the Department of Business Information Services to support the Office of Strategic Initiatives.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us, Ms. Fields, virtually. Our next appointment is Mr. Gregory J. Salois as Director in the Department of Transportation in the Office of District Operations. Joining him today are his wife, Mary, his son, Cole, and his daughter, Lily. Mr. Salois brings to MCPS more than 20 years of experience as a Transportation Operations Manager, District Transportation Manager, Senior Operations Manager, General Manager, Director of Logistics, and most recently as Fleet Maintenance Manager. Mr. Salois looks forward to working with the dedicated transportation and leadership team to make MCPS transportation the safest, most efficient, and equitable school bus operation for all students and staff.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous.
Thank you. Our next appointment is Dr. Kristen A. Wong Callisto as Executive Director in the Office of the Chief of Staff. Dr. Wong Callisto brings to MCPS more than 16 years of experience as a special education teacher, student services coordinator, student support specialist, director of outreach and organizational learning, director of system and school improvement, adjunct professor, and most recently as a director of special education. Dr. Wong Castillo looks forward to joining the Chief of Staff to work together to nurture and educate students in MCPS. She would like to thank her husband, Chris, and her family for their ongoing support of her career. She is excited to return to the other Washington with her husband and their 2 cats.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us virtually as well. Our next appointment is Dr. Natasha W. Jones as Director in the Division of Appeals in the Office of District Operations. Watching online is her family from her home city of Buffalo, New York. Dr. Jones brings to MCPS more than 24 years of experience as a school counselor, guidance department chair, specialist, assistant principal, Section 504 coordinator, and most recently as an instructional supervisor. Dr. Jones looks forward to joining the Division of Appeals to further the mission of MCPS and ensure equitable outcomes with the appeals process.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous.
Thank you. Next, we have Mrs. Elizabeth Rogovoy as Executive Director in the Office of the Deputy Superintendent. Joining her today are her husband, Phelps Rogovoy, and her 2 sons, Jack and Nathan. Watching online are her parents and sister from New Jersey and Delaware. Mrs. Rogovoy has been employed with MCPS for 19 years as a teacher, International Baccalaureate Coordinator, Coordinator in the Office of Curriculum and Instruction, Executive Assistant, and most recently as an Instructional Specialist in the Department of Human Capital Management. Mrs. Rogovoy looks forward to joining the Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Murphy, to support schools, school improvement, and system-wide professional learning.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous.
Thank you. Our next appointment is for Mrs. Rebecca Daugherty as Supervisor in Title I Programs in the Division of Title I and Early Childhood Programs and Services. She would like to recognize her husband, Ben, who is watching with her today, and her family back in Ohio who are watching online for their unwavering support and love. Mrs. Daugherty has been employed with MCPS for 13 years as a teacher, staff development teacher, Title I instructional specialist, Title I coordinator, and most recently, acting supervisor of Title I programs. Mrs. Daugherty looks forward to continuing on with the Division of Title I and Early Childhood Programs to provide support to students and families in Title I schools.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous.
Thank you so much for joining us virtually again. Our next appointment is Mr. Rafael D. Gramachis as the Supervisor for Student Systems Development in the Office of Strategic Initiatives. Watching online are his wife, Stacy, and his 3 children, Alex, Evelyn, and Nicholas. He is thankful for their love and support and thanks those individuals who have supported his professional growth and encouraged him throughout his time in MCPS. Mr. Gramachis has been employed with MCPS for 30 years as a classroom teacher, instructional specialist, supporting the integration of technology, and most recently as instructional specialist in the Department of Learning Management Systems and Development. Mr. Gramachis looks forward to working closely with all stakeholders within the MCPS community to support the data needs of the district and the state, continue the adoption of the student information systems with parents and students, and enhance the experiences for school and office users.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous.
Thank you. And our final appointment is for Mrs. Jennifer L. Losnick as Supervisor in Secondary Mathematics in the Office of the Chief Academic Officer. Joining her today are her husband, Jesse Losnick, 2 daughters, Lena and Camilla, and her son, Blaze. Shout out to her always loving and self-sacrificing parents in Texas and to the whole Ponduruses in her family. Mrs. Losnick has been employed with MCPS for 19 years as a teacher, resource teacher, staff development teacher, secondary mathematics specialist, and most recently as a learning and achievement specialist. Mrs. Losnick looks forward to joining the Department of Curriculum and Instructional Programs to support the success for all students in mathematics so that they graduate with the opportunity to choose their own destination.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous.
Thank you. And I do have one other recognition for the retirement of Montgomery County Public Schools personnel. Whereas the persons on the attached list are retiring or have retired from Montgomery County Public Schools, each person through outstanding performance of duties and dedication to the education of our youth has made significant contribution to the school system, which is worthy of special commendation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education members express their sincere appreciation to each person for their faithful service to the school system and to the children of Montgomery County, and also extend to each one best wishes for the future. And therefore be it resolved that a copy of this resolution is published on the Employee and Retiree Service Center website and available to each retiree.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous.
Good.
Thank you.
Ms. Wolf.
We'll give them a couple of minutes to leave the room. We're now up to public comments. Public comments is one of our opportunities to hear the views and receive the advice of community members. Board members will take your comments into consideration, but it is not our practice to take action at this time on issues that are raised. You have to forgive me, I'm having terrible allergies today. We encourage public input on policy, program, and practices. This is not the proper avenue to address specific student or employee matters, so we encourage everyone to utilize existing avenues of redress for complaints. This is a public meeting, and we expect the conduct of all speakers and members of the audience to be within the bounds of proper etiquette. Inappropriate personal remarks, rude retorts, or other such behavior is out of order and will not be tolerated. Those who demonstrate disruptive and disrespectful behavior during public comments may be asked to leave. Please check our website for information about upcoming board meetings, hearings, and work sessions, including any changes to our meeting start times. We have 7 people signed up to provide in-person testimony. Each speaker will receive 2 minutes. When your name is called, please approach the table, speak clearly and directly into the microphone. 30 seconds prior to the expiration of the speaker's time, a yellow light will go on, accompanied by a beep. A red light and a buzzer signals that your time has expired. Please push the flat button below the microphone to turn it on and begin speaking. Push the same button once more at the sound of the buzzer to turn it off. In addition to our in-person speakers today, we have 2 video presentations. We will play these submissions once the in-person testimonies have concluded. Copies of testimonies can be found on board docs where they are posted with the other materials for this meeting. So at this time, I'm going to call to the table Vania Young Garber, Viveka Sinha, and Esther Wells. And I ask that you speak in the order that you were called. Thank you. Do what? Good morning. Good afternoon. Press the button. Yeah.
I'm Fania Yang-Garber of Healthy School Food Maryland, an organization dedicated to improving health outcomes for children. We ask the board to act immediately to help struggling families by continuing to provide lunches in MCPS cafeterias free of charge. This is a crisis. Congress in Maryland failed to extend universal meal access, so our county must. For all farms-eligible families that fill out an application, school lunch will be free. Our concern is for families on the margins. To qualify, a family of 4 must earn less than 1.85 times the poverty level. The MoCo self-sufficiency standard for a family of 3 is more than 4 times the poverty level. Despite higher minimum wage rates, an MCPS parent with 2 young children needs over 110 work hours per week to make ends meet. Chelsea Lewis, a mom of twins at Richard Montgomery and a Julius West middle schooler, faced food insecurity because she earned too much to qualify for farms, but not enough to be food secure in the wealthiest Maryland county. Free meals have been a lifeline for her. The cost of covering full-price lunches is modest, and there is good news. The reimbursement rate almost doubled on July 1. Based on MSD data and higher reimbursements, covering the food cost of full-price lunches could be less than $2 million. The board cannot expect DF&S to decide whether this is doable. DF&S operates under a long-standing, unchallenged belief that it must be a budget-neutral, self-supporting enterprise. Federal law does not require the meal program to break even and absolutely allows schools to add funds to support it. MCPS can and must do this. the board must release DF&S from the requirement of budget neutrality and ask the county council to step in this once and help provide extra support to continue healthy school meals for all Montgomery. Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Viveka Sinha, and I'm a rising junior at Montgomery Blair High School. I'm here today to request the Board's help with a crucial issue: Asian American mental health. The problems stem from the model minority myth, the harmful and dangerous stereotype that Asian Americans are innately perfect. I have been in magnet schools with predominantly Asian American students all my life, and I have noticed that this stereotype has put immense pressure on my peers and I to achieve perfection with no room for errors or to request help. This overburdening pressure leads to immense stress and poor mental health for Asian American students. Unfortunately, the model minority myth extends to expectations of perfect mental health, preventing Asian American students from seeking assistance through the existing avenues such as school counselors or therapists for fear of judgment. The APA finds that Asian Americans are 3 times less likely to seek mental health services as the general population, which is why it's crucial that we create a stigma-free pathway for the community to request help with mental health in schools. Luckily, I have a 2-part solution. First, it's crucial that we counter the model minority myth by spreading awareness of the issue. If all students understand the consequences of the judgment they impose, then we can begin to reduce the stigma. I have created pamphlets that contain the details of the problem as well as what we should do to solve it. I would greatly appreciate the board's support in distributing these pamphlets in schools in Montgomery County. Secondly, I request the board's help with sensitizing and training school counselors in addressing the model minority myth. Counselors turn away Asian American students when we ask for help because they hold the damaging view that Asian Americans don't need help. To solve this problem, I have gathered resources which contain information about how to best help Asian American students. I would greatly appreciate the board's help in encouraging counselors to utilize these resources. The model minority myth wrecks Asian American students' mental health and leaves us with no accessible avenue for receiving help. It's critical that we address this problem for the next school year, and I believe that utilizing the proposed 2-part solution, we can begin to heal as a community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Esther Wells and I am the proud mother of 2 boys, a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old who has developmental disabilities. I am a certified public accountant and I care about ensuring that our schools have a plan that upholds its commitment to the community, our staff, and students. That is why I'm here today. I have 4 items to discuss as follows. Thank you to the MCPS teachers, bus drivers, and support staff for working the extended school year and the many summer offering programs. Your dedication to our most vulnerable students like my son was not in vain and will not soon be forgotten. My son enjoyed the in-person ESY program and is looking forward to starting the new school year next month. On May 10th, I testified to this board of the impeding staff shortage for ESY. This allowed for at least 7 weeks for MCPS to secure adequate staffing or at a minimum, timely update parents of the possibility of virtual learning for over 175 students. Instead, parents were given less than a week to pivot before a long holiday weekend, and students' needs were left unmet. This is a concrete example of why MCPS is viewed as having low transparency and poor communication with parents. Second, as we head into 2022 and 2023 school year, please put our students first by keeping our schools open and return to focusing on high academic achievement. Our students' mental health, low proficiency levels, increased behavioral challenges at school and in our community are a direct result of these mistakes. I ask that you commit to schools being open without the disruption of this past school year. I will not have time to go through items 3 and 4, but to highlight them, can you please update the community on where we are with the transportation staffing, as transportation is fundamental to ensuring students have access to an education? And lastly, how can parents volunteer and feel like partners if they are not allowed in the children's school? Thank you.
We have your testimony. Thank you. Next, I will call to the table Sarah Rose Greco, Alejandro Otero, and Hillary Swab.
1,150 teachers are leaving MCPS this year, a 36% increase from last year. My name is Sarah Rose Greco, and I'm now a statistic. I've only ever taught in Title I and high-needs schools, giving my blood, literally sweat and tears into this county. I thought nothing would ever top my first year teaching in Southeast until this year. Here's what I've observed in my 12 years of teaching, and here's why I'm leaving MCPS. Good teachers are only as good as the leaders that serve them. Either you're not trusted to do your job, or you're given more than you can handle, and you're given everyone else's job. Great teachers have great mentors that hold them accountable, and great mentors are hard to come by because they get placed at schools that could run themselves. Good talent leaves year after year. I'm looking around and there's no one left at my school because we are the revolving door of good talent and a forgotten school. Forgotten schools are the schools where parents don't complain, so you all forget about us. Let's look at the data at how many teachers are leaving your forgotten schools. And moving to a better school isn't going to solve the elephant in the room. Here are some solutions I feel will help retain teachers in one of the most reputable school districts in the country. Bring back the Gallup survey and then do something with that data. Rotate principals every 5 years and ensure that their evaluators are nonpartisan to have accurate and unbiased data. Pay people more money that are doing double time. Teaching and translating for the whole school out of the kindness of their heart is not good enough. Pay people, have a clear, cohesive process as the county for schools to follow when it comes to office referral data. What happens at one school is not necessarily happening at another. Incentivize teachers to get a degree in counseling because we're already doing that. Pay teachers significantly more money for wanting to work at Title I schools and allow them the freedom to create project-based design lessons that are more engaging and less confusing than a one-size-fits-all curriculum. Stop cutting basic reading programs in middle school and shine a floodlight, not a flashlight, on the highest dropout rates and highest teacher turnover rates, and then track backwards all the way down to pre-K services to get to the root cause analysis.
Thank you. We have your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Ed members. There we go, sorry about that. Good afternoon.
You had it right.
I had it right?
Yeah,
Just push it one more time.
One more time.
yeah. There you go.
All right. Hello, my name is Alejandro Otero, and after 10 years of teaching English language arts here in MCPS, I joined the some 1,500 other educators who decided they could not work this coming school year. I'll be sharing a few key factors that led me to this difficult decision. I hope that by addressing these issues, the county can once again live up to its vision and mission. Workload. There are simply too many tasks to be done in the day. The only way I could find to keep up with the work required was to work hours past my duty day. I found this unsustainable after returning to in-person learning after the pandemic. Unfair expectations. We were never able to do enough as educators. During my time on leadership, in meetings that included members of our central office oversight team, the message was very clear that no matter what improvement we made, we simply weren't doing enough to close the achievement gap on our level. I think it requires imagination to begin the work, or rather continue the work to restructure and better support the teachers in our classroom and create a better experience for all students. First, the base salary for teaching needs to be raised if you expect individuals to do this work. The job is brutal and exhausting. To do it moderately well requires incredible patience, effort, and mental acuity. If we do not incentivize education, we will simply not have the individuals that of the greatest talent that our students deserve. We need to increase staffing allocation at every level. More counselors, teachers, and paraprofessionals means a greater student-to-adult ratio and more time per student, time to build those positive relationships that help students excel. More staff trained on restorative practices means that there are more opportunities for students to be seen, be heard, and cared for, reducing the likelihood of harmful behaviors, and if those still persist, they need a targeted response from counselors and administrators. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. My name is Hillary Swab, and you have my written comments, so I just want to say thank you to these teachers for your service. And I am a Walter Johnson graduate of the class of 2000, and I am excited to move back into the WJ cluster with my young son. But what I am not excited about is the size of Ashburn Elementary School. That school has gotten so large and that it has continued to grow in size. Now, I understand that in 2016, the former PTA president came here and testified before this same board that the Ashburn Elementary School needed to be done. Well, now the school board has an opportunity at the WAML Tower sites for a new elementary school, and yet there is not a dollar being allocated to the construction of that school. 2 new housing developments are underway in the Ashburn Elementary School zone, including 717 new apartments by the Home Depot, 309 single-family homes at the WMLA Towers. That is going to blow up Ashburn Elementary School. The other thing this board continues to do is use bad data. The actual enrollment for Ashburn Elementary School for 2021 and 2022 was 863, and yet that number is projected to be met at the FY 2025 year. Obviously, you're going to hit 900 students by next year, and it's going to continue to grow. The school cannot continue to grow without having a new elementary school built in the Walter Johnson cluster. Now, I'm excited that the Charles Woodward High School is coming online soon, but the Ashburn Elementary School situation cannot wait until it reaches an overflow. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I will call Cynthia Simonson to the table. Oh, there she is.
Right underneath it.
Good afternoon. Today I'm here in my personal capacity with my request for this coming year. First, and there's more detail in my written comments I hope you'll take time to review. First, let's engage the community better going forward, starting with posting agendas in a timely manner for BOE meetings. Details are in my written testimony, but that you have no one here from Innovative Calendar Schools should be a signal to you. Please crack the code on temporary part-time contracts. Why are retirees and former employees showing up at MCPS committee meetings referencing special projects that they're doing? Require those labor reports that I failed to ever gather. TPTs are an important aspect of temporary stopgap to getting staffing in schools, but if we are just low-key adding FTEs to central office, please ask why. This year, we need to ensure food security for all of our students. County Council can't intervene and appropriate funding for these meals unless the BOE asks, so please ask. In 2020, I asked for the pandemic plan that was referenced in the Baldridge application materials. It never materialized. As we near the fall opening, with more variants coming and the likelihood of monkeypox virus hitting, please require a written plan so that we can all follow along. Update it weekly if needed, but oral reports does not foster trust or competence. Let's make MCPS athletics better, especially with regard to the expectation and the liability the system places on students with access to vehicles. More about my daughter's $32,000 accident will be while being expected to drive her high school teammates is in my written testimony. Require MCPS divulge the detailed reports of independent activity funds. Last year, some schools were nearing $1 million in balances. If you don't know why, then you need to ask for that ledger, and the public should know too. For 4 years, several of us have been testifying about open data. I'll repost my testimony and my written comments. The board needs to be aware the buck keeps getting passed. Contracts were put in place and there's no verifiable progress.
Thank you, Ms. Simonson. We have your written report. Thank you. We also received 2 video testimonies. First up is Jennifer Martin. Please play the video.
Good afternoon, members of the board and Dr. McKnight. I'm Jennifer Martin, president of the Montgomery County Education Association. This year, we've had an unprecedented number of resignations and retirements from the school system. The latest numbers indicate that we've seen over 2,300 staff leave this year, a 53% increase over last year at this time. And 1,150 of these employees were teachers. Educators share that they're exhausted and demoralized by ever-increasing workloads and a lack of respect for the profession. They grow tired of being micromanaged as to how they teach and of being harried by incessant requests for data when they know our focus needs to be on students, not spreadsheets. They leave because they refuse to continue to participate in the overtesting of students. They're no longer willing to push children on a forced march through standardized curricula that all too often fail to reflect their students' interests, diverse experiences, backgrounds, and needs. And every year there are fewer new teachers to replace those who leave. So today we have a crisis of staffing shortages that has resulted in last-minute involuntary transfers. These are contrary to our negotiated agreement, and they've created confusion for school administration and teachers alike. Master schedules must be reconfigured, and teachers must scramble to prepare themselves not only for another school, but also in many cases for a new grade or new subject. We're facing a downward spiral in which an increasing number of excellent, dedicated educators will leave the profession, while potential educators will look to sectors where they'll receive more respect and better pay and working conditions. The coming school year presents an opportunity for MCPS to restore respect for those on the front lines with our students. MCA urges the board to work with us in the upcoming contract negotiations to make MCPS once again a welcoming and supportive environment for excellence in teaching and learning.
Our next and final video comes from Dara Goldberg. Please.
Hello, I'm Dara Goldberg, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Montgomery County and also a mom of 2 MCPS students at Sligo Creek Elementary School. I'm giving testimony today to propose the idea of MCPS hiring social workers with years of experience and expertise on a part-time basis. For the past 10 years, I've had a private psychotherapy practice and I've worked as a contract therapist in a few MCPS schools providing therapy to children with Medicaid. Since the pandemic, there's been an incredible increase in mental health needs of our students and staff. Over the past year, I've looked at the MCPS website to see if there are part-time social work jobs, but have not been able to find any. I believe there are a lot of social workers in private practice, like myself, who have the flexibility and desire to want to be part of a positive change in supporting our whole school system to improve mental health. I have a few ideas what this could look like. The first is providing direct clinical services to students in need, either individually or in groups. Beyond that, we can provide mental health, education tools, and other in-the-moment strategies to teachers. Other ways we can support the system is creating trainings geared towards teachers, guidance counselors, or support staff. In this role, social workers may also provide supervision to other social workers on staff and ongoing consultation for all staff. A final idea for someone in this role is to help create, support, evaluate, and/or implement mental health initiatives that are already being used or pilot programs. Providing part-time positions for social workers or other mental health professionals may create space for a lot of qualified people to want to work for MCPS. I'm really proud to be a parent in this community and also know I provide, along with so many others, a unique skill set and over a decade of experience that could be part of a process to support our students, staff, and greater community. Thank you for your time and consideration of my ideas.
Okay, this will conclude our public comments. The next board business meeting is Tuesday, August the 23rd. Sign-ups for public comment will open the evening of Tuesday, August the 16th. In addition to the online sign-ups for public comment, we have returned to the practice of in-person, same-day sign-ups when space allows. Unallocated slots may be filled on a first-come, first-served basis on the day of the meeting. In order to sign up in person, please arrive at least 15 to 20 minutes before the start of the open session and sign the form. In-person sign-ups will close 15 minutes before public comment begins or when all slots are filled. At this time, I'll entertain board comments, but before I do, I wanted to thank everyone that came to speak today, and I particularly wanted to thank Viveka Sinha for the pamphlet that she created. I think that this is an excellent piece of work, And it's certainly something we can pass along to our staff dealing with mental health, because no one should be stigmatized because of some perceived stereotype. So I really appreciate the work that you did on this. And to our teachers, I'm certain that, we want to thank you. I know that's never enough, but we want to take every opportunity to recognize the hard work that you have done during this year. Trust me, I know my daughter teaches also. So at this time, I'm going to start with Mr. Kim. Do you have anything you want to say?
Just echoing your sentiments, Board Member Wolf.
Thank you. Do I see anybody's, Ms. Silvestri?
Yes, just wanted to comment on the several testimonies that received around the school meals plan. Certainly, it is an area of concern as we transition back to hopefully a new and improved normal. And so I hope that we're having conversations, strategic conversations with community organizations, but also what did we learn from this period during the pandemic when we had to do certain things, and how do we move forward with a better plan and not just going back to what we were doing previously. And it is a concern that people still have to re-enroll with the forms, and we've always been challenged with that. And then given this economy and the cost of food, making sure that those families on the margin are being served. Just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you, Ms. Silvestri. So I first want to say that it continues to be our commitment to make sure that we're meeting the basic needs of all of our students, and we know that food insecurity has been one that we've paid close attention to, always, definitely during the pandemic, and we continue to do so. Our staff is going to continue to work with families to make sure they have affordable options for food. We actually have been able to do some very creative things since we've gotten the federal grant, which allows every child to be able to receive food, and so we are going to continue to do that. MCPS has paid for the meals for students who could not afford to pay for them before, and so we're going to find every way to continue to do that within all legal allowances that we have to work with. So I just want to go on record to say that continues to be a part of what we do. We can't serve students in their learning if we don't take care of their basic needs initially. So thank you for raising that question. And like I said, we found many different ways to be innovative. We've taken lots of feedback from our students who are, receiving the meals, and so we want to utilize that in our plan moving forward.
Is it okay if I ask a follow-up question? Yeah. Thanks for that, Dr. McKnight.
Sure.
A couple speakers also mentioned the possibility of approaching county council about getting additional support. I'm not familiar with the role that the council does or can play. Could you speak to the possibility of that
Sure.
avenue?
I'll need to dig into that testimony more specifically to understand exactly where the concern is coming from. I will say that in conversations that I've had with the council, they also have a very big thought and idea of how we solve the food insecurity problem overall in the entire county. And the school system has been a part of those conversations to say, what is going to be our part and what's going to be the financial implications and what will be the plan to do that. So I do not see our county council as a barrier in any way in this conversation, because they actually approached us, and shared what can we do and how can we work together collectively to make sure we do that. And I have to credit Council President Gabe Albornoz, who, really approached that with us, and know that the school system will be center.
Can I ask?
I was just getting ready to say, go ahead.
You mentioned within our legal abilities, and I was assuming maybe that's what you were, because people had mentioned us potentially being able to change how our school lunches are funded and whether or not the council can. Is that what you're referring? I think that's what they were kind of asking about. I didn't realize that we had the opportunity to change that.
Well, we do have to work within federal guidelines of what we are able to provide, and a big part of this too, and we've had this conversation, is it's important. A part of this is also us being able to collect data on what families are impacted, and in the past we've done that by them identifying, essentially food insecurity through our process of having families complete a farms form, and so that is still very much a part of information that we want to collect, because in this context we're talking about food, but we also want to know who our families are that are impacted beyond that and how that fits into resources overall in our school. So we do have to fall within the guidelines of how we collect that money and what it's to be used for. A lot of that's changed over the past year when we haven't had some of those guidelines in place because we had the federal grant funds.
Right.
So right now is a great and opportune time for us to continue to rework all of that, which is exactly what we are looking at. And it fits squarely and nicely into this initiative that I mentioned earlier for the county.
Great. I'm excited by what our past SMOB, Matt Post, is doing with a program. He's putting together a program to help families sign up for the farms forums and
Yes.
stuff like that, which is really, I think, very helpful for our families.
Agreed.
So just so I'm clear, I thought for the upcoming school year, though, we were providing free meals to all students.
You mean funded?
I thought that we had a grant to, or that the federal government was covering something.
So
I thought that they said that. No? Okay. I just wanted to clarify that I wanted to.
no, and I'm glad you said that. And again, I'll say that because over the past few years, we've had that federal grant that provided that provision for us. We do not want to go back to some students in our schools not having the meals. So that's why internally we've come up with a lot of creative ways to be able to provide that. And I thought we may have mentioned some of that at a previous board meeting when
I was going to say, when the Division of Food and Nutrition were
Yes.
here last, they also talked about that if our families are on Medicaid, which wouldn't happen, it wasn't in years past, but they would automatically be signed up. Our system would be able to be linked so that we would know, and so that was a group of families that we wouldn't have to worry about having the form filled out. I don't know if that started in 2018. I can't remember. I was here to pull it up.
I see Ms. Edwards joined us at the table.
Dana's joined us.
Good afternoon. One of my favorite topics are food. So I did want to add to the conversation. One of the points we do want to make, of course, there is a difference between when we were in the pandemic year. One of the big upgrades is that all of our reduced price students will now eat free. So that's one of the pieces that has been a little bit different in the past. And you are correct, Ms. Evans, in terms of the Medicaid and being able to use that to help with the farm's applications. And so we have launched our campaign to be able to start to bring the farm's applications out, thinking about different ways to engage with the community behind this. Really thinking about the back to school fair, using our 2 innovative schools is kind of understanding how it works and what else that we do need to do. So our team will come back to the table at the end of December, as you know, just around the menu redesign program that the board passed a resolution about, and we will bring this information into that discussion. We also don't want to leave you without information until December, so we'll provide you some updates along the way, just so you know how we're moving along, things that we're hearing from the community and how we're engaging them to make sure all of our students are covered. But we do have a work group that you had the resolution through that we are working through many of the things that we talked about, I think maybe 4 board meetings ago when we came to you.
Thank you. Ms. Harris.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a quick follow-up here. So what I heard from Ms. Younggarber on behalf of some of the advocates and allies is that the assertion is that it would be about $2 million for us to kind of close the gap and provide the free meals for every student, regardless of financial status. And if we could, take a look at that, given the increase in reimbursement rates that went into effect on July 1st, and also taking a second look at, and I know this has been an issue over many years with people trying to work alongside DFNS on a variety of issues relating to school food. And we all know how many students and families have come to us about fixing the food. But that is one thing that has been repeated over time, is the need for that enterprise fund through which DFNS is funded be budget neutral. And if in fact that is not a federal requirement and additional funding can be used to go to support school meal programs, can we also look into that as well? Because I think a very good point was raised and then augmented by my colleagues here, and that first of all, we know that a huge number of that the completion of farms forms has dramatically decreased during the pandemic. but also that just eligibility under that program isn't going to meet all the needs for our families that are food insecure. And so, you know, as we look to get more people to fill out the forms, which also helps us to provide documentation for other forms of federal funding, but also looking at what we can do to simply make the meals available to everyone without regard to any other factor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. I was
President Wu.
just going to say you wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Harris, for raising that. So, and thank you, Ms. Edwards, for coming down. So, a couple things here that I want to just circle back to. In reference to Ms. Young Garber's testimony, we're going to follow up with her more specifically because she's mentioning specific numbers, and I want to make sure that we are clear on, you know, where her numbers are coming from so that we're talking about the same thing. So we're going to follow up and do that. But the reason I brought up earlier around our conversations around food choices, because a big part of this discussion was that we did not want to have any students who were receiving a free meal or a reduced meal to not have as many options or to feel in some way shamed by the options that were presented to them. So that's why this innovative approach of how we are approaching meals covers several categories. Just what you mentioned, what options are going to be offered to those students, those who in the past have received reduced meals but now not having to pay at all. You know, how are we reconciling that financially, all of those pieces. So I think this is something that we need to share an update with the board. We can certainly come back and share it in a board meeting overall, but I do want this to fit into the context of generally what we're doing overall within the school system that's complemented in the county of how we're addressing overall a hunger need within Montgomery County. And they're just not separate, but I think it presents a very good innovative opportunity that we should probably spend a little bit more time talking about globally.
Thank you. Ms. Silvestri, were you finished?
No. Just to reiterate Dr. McKnight's points and someone else's point, we also need families to complete those forms for federal funding, but as well as part of it's a poverty indicator.
Correct.
And we want to be able to tell how well our children in poverty are doing. If people are not completing those forms, then we don't have the data to do that effectively. We heard about transportation shortages or staffing shortages. Dr. McKnight, could we get an update to the community, maybe in the 3 things to know, so that people know where we are in terms of getting ready for the school year and reducing those staffing?
Absolutely. I want to thank in advance our comms team because I know they have been readily discussing this. And so we will be providing the updates with our community about preparation for the upcoming year. The staffing component is one component of that update so that we can, in fact, be transparent and share with our community how we are preparing for the first day of school prior to the first day of school coming quickly. So we look forward to hearing back from our community, too, about this communications plan, and you'll start to see information being rolled out next week. We try to get through the end of July. We've heard in the past from some of our families, you know, if you start sending stuff about back to school before August 1st, kind of seems like you're cutting the summer short. But so we've timed that out and are really looking to get feedback from our community, giving their perceptions of how this community process of communicating about the readiness for school really works this year. So thank you for asking that question.
Well, the back-to-school sales commercials are already out. So
and we can't stop
not
those.
too soon. Yeah.
Yes.
Our Ashburton parent, I just wanted to make sure that there is an elementary school in the CIP that is intended to relieve both the Walter Johnson cluster and the Bethesda cluster. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And if someone could reach out, please, to Ms. Goldberg about her idea in terms of bringing on part-time social workers. Thank you.
Definitely.
Okay, Dr. Joftis.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge I guess they left, the couple teachers who spoke about the decision to leave, and I really want to express, I think I speak for the board, but I'll certainly speak for myself, that first of all, we've recognized that the last few years in particular have been extremely difficult and challenging, unprecedented, and to know that that we are looking into how do we support principals, school leaders in a way that we can foster cultures in the school that will ensure that teachers have opportunities for growth, both professionally and with their students in terms of achievement. I do want to respond to Ms. Martin's comment, though, because it's been getting a lot of attention in the press. I don't know, Dr. McKnight, if it would be, oh, I'm sorry?
I just said she was going to speak to it.
Okay,
but you
great.
can go ahead if you
Okay.
want.
No, I just thought maybe we could take this opportunity. I know in her comments, Ms. Martin mentioned that the transfers, I'm blanking on the term. Involuntary transfers
Yes.
are counter to the negotiated agreement. And I know we've had some conversations, and I was wondering if you could speak to that, because my understanding is that that's not the case, that it is well within the district's ability to make those transfers. And while nobody wants to do that, and we haven't had to do that for the past couple of years, previously we've done it before, and there will always be some need to adjust staffing levels at each school.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Joftis. So first, I too want to acknowledge our teachers who came forward, and actually our student as well, because what they are all speaking to collectively is the perspective of the impact, particularly social emotional impact for students and staff at a very difficult time. And while we have moved into a new phase of the pandemic management, I would imagine and can guess, and I know you all will agree, that the impact is going to be a bit lasting after we've figured out a number of things of how to manage it. And so I want to thank them all for coming forward and sharing what their unique experiences are. And to our student, Viveka, this is why we have the best students in the world, because they create the solutions themselves and share with us the different resources that will actually help them. And it is through their experience that we can always come back to just reflecting on sometimes how our implicit bias and stereotypes can be harmful in many ways. And so I want to thank her for that. And to our teachers, they have elevated some issues that we know have impacted us here in Montgomery County and have impacted districts across the nation, and particularly when it comes down to high-need schools. And I want to acknowledge the board for this, because I know even when I came back as a deputy superintendent, which was the year of the pandemic, the board definitely, you shared your interest in making sure that we were differentiating and thinking about what are the needs of our high-need schools and how do we resource them appropriately. The pandemic occurred, and as you know, that kept us focused full-time on the needs there. However, I'm proud that our teams have reconvened even last year along with our associations to really look at that, and most importantly to elevate the voice of the staff members who are in our high need schools to really dig in and understand the complexity of the issues that impact them, so that what we do will be tailored towards what we need to do for our teachers and students here in MCPS. And so I want to say to them, soon enough can't get here to us resolving that. And as you know, we will continue to work with our staff and our associations through that process. But their interest is also the system's interest, and I know the board's interest. And so that is a piece that I just wanted to highlight. We're still working on that, as we know. It really addresses climate, the student learning, and by association leadership when we think about high need schools. The transfer process that was brought up in Ms. Martin's testimony, I'll also liken this or connect it to over the past couple of years how processes have played out differently because of the pandemic. So the transfer process, the involuntary transfer process, is not new. I want to say that. It's not new. And although we have not utilized it in the past 2 years in the way that we are now, we've done that because we wanted to be able to provide our schools the support that they needed in unprecedented times. We are now returning to some of those practices that are written within the contract jointly by the associations and exercising that to make sure we are looking at our schools, we're looking at their needs equitably, and we're also looking at what we can do to make sure we're addressing the staffing needs within first. And I think that's fiscally responsible of us to do so. And so I wanted to start out with that because, again, this is not a contractual violation. but it feels differently because we have not utilized this process so in the last couple of years. It's a normal process to ensure that we have staff in the right positions across the entire county. So I know it feels very personal for a school and for a staff member when they are impacted by that process, but I ask you to hang in there with us this year as we continue to move towards a more normalized staffing approach that we would have to move to ultimately because we're not in the same place we were 2 years ago. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. And I did want to say a couple other things. The association agreements prescribe 2 seasons of transfers, generally beginning in March and ending in July. We are still in the month of July, okay? Typically, all staff identified for transfer collectively are placed within this timeline. And so they are communicated with, the principals are communicated with, and they work in collaboration so that we can make sure that we are working with our teachers and having the conversation so that we can place them in areas in which they have certification and also are taking some of their individual needs into consideration. But sometimes it doesn't always feel easy. And I do want to acknowledge that and not just act as if it's something that people don't have a connection or feeling to. But we're going to continue to work hard on this. We have positions that we're trying to fill, and I just want to thank our staff publicly for working with us through this process, and just know that our Human Resources Department and others are going to continue to work with them and work with our associations to figure out the best outcomes for our students and for the staff.
Thank you. Finally, I just want to say, with regard to the food insecurity issue, while we do have a number of students on free and reduced price lunch, I'm also very concerned about those students whose parents make just enough not to be included in that group. We need to figure out how we're going to address their issues too, because with the cost of food having gone up tremendously, I know I've been in the store this week, and I mean, something's $9 for things that were $6. I don't want to lose that group of students. We have to figure out some way to cover that group of students also, and I'm sure that you're working on it and thinking about it. I just didn't want that to get lost. Thank you. Lynn, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
Yes, just a few quick comments. And I just want to thank everybody that came forward today with really constructive suggestions of things that we can work on collectively to better serve our students and staff. So you all have already mentioned again, our student, Ms. Sinha from RM, and could we intentionally make sure that we reproduce the pamphlet she's created and distributed it throughout our at least our middle and high schools, and so we can broaden the reach of the work that she's already done, and also appreciated Ms. Goldberg's testimony and suggestions around bringing, a cadre of licensed clinical social workers who have some time and some flexibility to help with us serving the mental health and behavioral needs of our students. And tying into some of Ms. Simonson's testimony, Ms. Goldberg mentioned part-time licensed clinical social workers, but perhaps this would be an opportunity for us to use some of our temporary part-time positions to bring in some of those clinical social workers to do staff support and that kind of work as well as supporting students and staff directly. I also just had one quick question. In her testimony, Ms. Wells raised an issue about parents not being allowed in schools to volunteer. And that was an issue I thought we dealt with last fall. And I do know there was some difference in uptake school to school when we said it was acceptable for volunteers to come back into our schools and help. Can we figure out what schools are still resistant to bringing volunteers back and see if we can get around those concerns?
Yes. So I want to say, yes, thank you, Ms. Wells, for raising that. I have been very clear with our administrators and our community and how the way that we're going to close the gaps of interpersonal connections and success as a system is to do it together. And that has been around building a foundation of connecting and engaging. And that absolutely fits squarely within how we want our schools to operate and welcome our families in. We're in a very different place than we were, again, a year ago with vaccines and thinking about safe measures. And so, you know, I know we've had some parents in our schools because they've been sharing with me some of the things that they've been able to come in, and some of our schools have said we've been able to provide recess and a number of other these things with the help of our parents. So we will do that, Ms. Harris. I know it is Ms. Rubin and her team's responsibility to continue to work with the schools. And I have to also say they have really, and I met with principals personally, and been having these conversations around how do we take engagement to the next level? Not even just what we've done in the past, but how do we take that engagement to the next level? I mean, I understand we've had principals at pools giving out popsicles, all of those types of things, so that it happens not just with our families feeling the need to come into our schools, but how we also go into the community. So we're asking our parents, if you feel like, you know, there's a way that we can help bridge a connection between you and the school, please let us know. We want to be able to do that and to help. In terms of Ms. Sinha with her pamphlets, yes, I said we're going to follow up with her and even think about ways in which we can share these resources and highlight her leadership in helping us to bring forward something that I know we're probably even going to see more of when we bring back our audit results. And that's getting down to what things are impacting specific groups of our students and in what ways. And I think this is a perfect example of that. So we want to partner with her in doing so. And we will definitely follow up with Ms. Goldberg on her thoughts as well about bringing those mental health supports. And so Ms. Rubin and Mr. Montiglione will follow up there as well. Thank you.
Okay, we're now up to item 6. I'll ask Dr. McKnight to proceed.
Thank you, President Wolf. And so at this time, I will invite our presenters down from the Office of School Support and Wellbeing. And I also believe that we are having some join us from some of our schools as well. They may be joining us virtually from our innovative calendar schools. So we are joined by members of the Office of School Support and Wellbeing team who are going to be here to provide a report on the opening of our innovative calendar schools. Arcola and Roscoe Nix Elementary Schools begin the school year earlier than our traditional calendar schools. Some of us had an opportunity to go out and visit with them. I got to tell you, some of the kindest students offering to share their lunch when we were there with them in the cafeteria. But again, just loving the experience of being in the schools. And so I want to thank those principals for hosting us to be a part of that experience. It's always one that's very meaningful. And so I understand that our principals will be at the table today as well to share some feedback with us. Mr. John Felipe from Arcola, yes, and Ms. Foltz from Nix. So with that, I don't see anyone joining us at the table. Oh, we're a little ahead.
Oh, we are? Oh. Okay, well, let's see, I guess we could do our consent items if you have staff here that could answer any questions if need be. Do we have any consent items that anybody wants to pull? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so can I get a motion to move, and we're on item 10, Mr. Kim, in case you're doing that, following us. Can we get somebody to?
Move approval.
Can I get a second?
Point of order. Motion to.
Oh, we need a motion to revise the agenda.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Look at you,
And,
you're so good.
You know,
Little lawyer on our hands.
I love it. I love the person that knows.
Correct,
parliamentary
me
procedure.
too.
Can we
I'll
get a
move
motion
to revise the agenda.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second to revise the agenda to consider item number 10, and can we consider item number 11? That'll give your people enough time to get here, hopefully.
Yep. Move to revise the agenda to amend item 10 and 11 forward, and potentially 12.
And 12.
And
We
12,
could do
yeah, I was gonna say, and
too.
12. And Arvin, did you want to second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to amend the agenda to move up item 10, 11, and 12. All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous.
And then,
So we
should I
didn't.
move the consent items
Well,
now?
wait, does anyone have any consent item they want to pull? Carla, was that not in the room?
Oh.
Seeing none, can you move?
I'll move the consent items 10.1 through 10.6 in bulk,
Second.
or in block, whatever you call
All
it.
in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Can I get a motion to move, item number 11 are items for information only, so no vote is needed. On item number 12, can I get a motion to move items 12.1 and 12.2 and 3 in block?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. At this time, I have the appointment to committee for our new SMOB. Just have to find it. Taking it out of order meant that I have to find it. Hold on. I've got it right here. All right, so I think that I can just go with the resolves, okay? Resolve that student member of the board, Arvin Kim, be appointed to serve as a member of the board's Policy Management Committee until his term ends on June 30th, 2023. And be it further resolved that the composition of the board's Strategic Planning Committee be modified to allow the student member of the board, Arvin Kim, to serve as a fourth member of the board's Strategic Planning Committee. Okay, hold on. So can I get a motion to?
And that he be appointed to serve until his term ends
On June 30th, 2023. I'm
So
just
moved.
making sure we didn't miss anything. All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous of those in the room. Thank you. So I think that our innovative schools people have arrived.
Yes, they are. I'm very happy to see them.
Do you want to do 13 because since you moved it already?
We didn't, I only revised 10, 11, and 12.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Uh-huh,
Sorry, I was thinking 11, 12.
yeah, okay. Would you like to carry on, Dr. McKnight?
Okay, yes, so we'll go back to item number 6. And I am going to ask the team to join me, members of the Office of School Support and Wellbeing, as well as our principals from the Innovative Calendar Schools. And as they are walking up, I have to repeat some of the things that I said because they were very complimentary to their schools. First, I want to thank our Innovative Calendar School leaders and staff members for hosting us a couple weeks ago as they were returning for the new school year. The work that they do is tremendous in terms of the type of community support that they provide to their families. I think is a perfect example of what we say goes above and beyond. And most importantly, Mr. John Felipe, I was complimenting your students earlier. I said, and they are so kind. They were offering us food at lunch, as you can remember, to make sure that we as adults were eating. But it just warmed my heart how welcoming they were and just so appreciative for all of the support that they get from the school. And we really saw that commitment from the staff members from both schools, Arcola and Nix. And I just want to thank you so much for all that you do. And to see the happiness of the families and the diligence of the staff to just serve in a way that, again, speaks to them always going above and beyond is just exceptional. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you to the support of your staff. Again, just true models of dedication, and we're glad to have you here today to talk about your experience at the table. Okay, welcome. And I think I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Morris.
Good afternoon, President Wolf, members of the board, Dr. McKnight. I'm so excited to be with you this afternoon, as well as with the teams. of Arcola and Roscoe Nix Elementary School to share the opening of the 2022-2023 school year. If we could bring up the PowerPoint. Next slide, please. So today we hope to provide you with an overview of the calendar schools. We hope to address and highlight successes. We're going to hear from school teams from Arcola and Nix to share those successes during the opening this year. We'll briefly look at some school data, and we're going to talk about looking ahead for the remainder of the school year with a lens on the system priorities. Next slide, please. Before we hear from our school teams, we wanted to provide you with a glimpse into the opening. So if you could play the video. Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think it's TV. You're hearing
Okay. Okay. Sure. So if we could go to the next slide. As a reminder, we wanted to provide you with the established vision for the innovative calendar schools. I'd like to call out three main components that are included in that vision. One is the extended school year by 30 days. The second is to engage students in project-based learning. And the third is to incorporate mindfulness practices for students and staff. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Nichelle Owens, Director of Division of Early Childhood and Title I Programs and Recovery Funds, who will share specific information about the successes and highlights before we hear from our school teams.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. I'll turn on the mic. Thank you, Ms. Morris, and thank you to the board for the opportunity to share some successes and highlight some areas of improvement. Next slide, please. And one more slide, please. Since the beginning of the Innovative School Calendar, we have viewed the additional 30 days as an equity strategy that allows children at these two schools to build strong relationships with their teachers and peers. We also view it as an opportunity for them to explore new concepts and to deepen their knowledge of content using project-based learning. OSA's report identified 5 areas of improvement, as noted on the slide. For the sake of time, I'm just going to talk about one of them, and that's enriched learning. We see enriched learning as a direct connection to the district strategic priority of academic success and to the superintendent's priority on returning to a focus on teaching and learning, equitable teaching and learning. As the Planning and Implementation Committee structured the Innovative School Calendar several years ago, they specifically spoke about the benefits of project-based learning and referenced the research of the Buck Institute. And the Buck Institute talked about how project-based learning enriches learning through critical thinking, problem-solving, collaboration, communication, and self-management skills. Teacher observations state that the program has been successful in highlighting those skills. So the pairing of Project Lead the Way and science is a success for these two schools. Next slide, please. When we highlight areas of improvement, we see those as opportunities to engage in some collaborative problem solving and also to respond to the customized needs of each of the schools. While all of these areas have a direct impact on student learning, I'm going to, again, just speak about one area of improvement, and that is teacher burnout. We all know that the pandemic has had an effect on teacher burnout across the nation, right? So we're not surprised to see this elevated in the report. Specifically, it makes sense that teachers at these two schools who are pouring their hearts into 210 days during the year of teaching and learning, that this would be elevated. To address staff well-being and teacher burnout, our two principals have set up some structures to keep staff engaged and to support them. Both schools have specialized lunches or food trucks available for the staff. They also have Staff Spirit Week, they have staff celebrations and gatherings. The schools also have a very predictable early release schedule that allows the staff to know what is going to take place, what professional learning is going to take place on their early release days. And the early release days also give the staff an opportunity to retool and recharge. Next slide, please. So we're really proud of the work that these two schools have engaged in, and we want you to hear directly from them. So I'm going to hand this presentation over to Mr. Jean-Philippe, principal of Arcola, and to Ms. Katie Galvin, teacher at Arcola. They're going to share some more detailed information about Arcola's implementation of the innovative calendar. Mr. Jean-Philippe.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Dr. McKnight. If you bear with me, I want to say happy birthday to my son, Joel, whose birthday is today, and hello to our Arcola Gator community. Arcola and NICS, we promote student hope and engagement and achievement through the Innovative School Comprehensive Calendar through IS, also known as ISY. From the start of Innovative Schools to date, we've had 644 days of school for our students in comparison to 540 days offered by our traditional schools. With this year's successful opening of schools, we continue our journey of promoting student hope, engagement, and achievement by extending the number of days and availability of enrichment opportunities for our students at NICS and Arcola. As a result of the dedicated work of our staff, engagement of our parents, and most importantly, the presence of our students, Arcola and NICS were able to inspire learning by providing quality educational experiences. As we move forward from the many challenges and learnings of the pandemic, we embrace the benefits of the innovative school year. In terms of community partnerships, relations, and parent empowerment, ensuring effective communication and ensuring parents are able to be involved in the school community as well as engaging their children academically and socially are key tenets of the innovative school year. Both schools employ a variety of strategies that foster community and parent empowerment. This is done through various parent meetings, constant messaging, synergy, the use of synergy, connect ed messaging, teacher and parent relationships. Our teachers use a variety of apps and they connect with our parents through text messaging and a variety of other tools. Individual communication with parents, as well as it's important that at the time of registration, when a family walks in, that is a key time that we're connecting with our new families and explaining our processes and the experience of the innovative school year. The kindergarten orientation process, the open houses, and tours are key strategies that we utilize. My colleague, Ms. Folks, will share a number of actions employed by Roscoe NICS that exemplify the tailoring of work to partner with our families in just a moment. However, we'll first hear from Ms. Katie Galvin, third grade teacher at Arcola Elementary School.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm going to be touching upon how we support our novice teachers here at Arcola Elementary, and it really starts at the top. Our administration does a great job at creating a trusting and positive climate and setting school-wide expectations for us all. There's a central location for our teachers to access essential documents, which helps with messaging. In addition to that, we provide professional development to instruct our teachers on proactive strategies and routines to promote positive behavior. It is a clear message that our social well-being is valued for staff and students. This is shown by us getting individual and team planning time and using that time to embed interactive lessons for students to foster collaboration, mindfulness, and Project Lead the Way, our project-based learning program. When I asked teachers for feedback on what worked well as they were entering in as a first-year teacher, and a common message was they appreciated the frequent check-ins. We're truly a family at Arcola. And that means being available, if that is as simple as going in and an informal check-in in person, being available through a text message or an email, all of those really make a difference. It's the little things. I remember my first day as a first-year teacher, and just remembering the schedule was intimidating. So being able to have consistent curriculum helps us to better prepare and get ready week 1 materials, and that can alleviate a lot of stress for our first-year teachers. And speaking to that, our resources and training, having that prior really helps them feel more ready and prepped for the day and for the year to come. So having that opportunity to take that training prior is really essential. Ultimately, having access to time, information, and resources can make all the difference for our new teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garvin, for sharing your reflections around support for new teachers. At this time, we will hear from my colleague, Principal Ms. Annette Folks, and one of her teachers, Ms. Beitzer.
Good afternoon, Ms. Wolf, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. McKnight. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you about the opening of the 4th year of the Innovative Schools schedule. As we reflect on the opening of Innovative Schools this year, what we are really reflecting on is how Roscoe Nix and Arcola build and nurture community. As of this year, both Roscoe Nix and Arcola are now community schools. Our students, our teachers, our staff, and our families are all a part of our community. As we prepared for the opening of schools, we ensured that our focus was aligned with the 3 pillars of the MCPS strategic plan: academic excellence, well-being and family engagement, and professional and operational excellence. Opening a school with an innovative school calendar requires strategic collaboration with many offices and the employment of best practices to help set the foundation for our community to thrive. 2 major areas of focus that we work on when we're opening schools is communication and preparation. Communication for us begins earlier than many other schools. As soon as the Board of Education adopts the calendar, we are communicating with our families the first day of school. And we send that messaging out often and early so that our parents can prepare and plan for an extended school year. Multiple methods are used to communicate with our families, including what we have available through Synergy, Class Dojo, ConnectEd, in-person meetings, and utilizing some of our well-being staff, including our PPWs, our parent community coordinators, and this year I now have a community school liaison. I'm so excited. So we do send out messaging in both English and Spanish to our families. Both Arcola and Nix were early on in having in-person kindergarten orientations, and so our incoming new families were aware of the schedule, they were aware of our programming, and so they were ready for the first day of school. In preparing for the instructional program, we collaborated with multiple offices to help ensure that our teachers had all of the curriculum materials and access to the required training prior to the start of the school year. This required, again, having to think strategically to provide training in different formats, both asynchronous and synchronous, in order for our teachers to have a bit more of a flexible option as they were preparing to decide when they would take their trainings. It was important for us to make sure that our staff received their training early so that when they had their break, it was an uninterrupted break for them to recharge and rest. We've also worked strategically to enhance our communication. At Roscoe Nix, we used a specialized mailing that we sent out to every family. We'd like to thank the mail office for helping with that. So families received a packet with a profile of their teacher, who their teacher was, what college they attended, the way to communicate with them, what their favorite books and quotes are. So when they walked into school, students had the paper with their teacher's picture on it. This is my teacher for the first day of school. So we were excited that they were able to utilize that. Both schools utilize bilingual staff members to call parents to inform them about the schedule, about the registration process, and just to find out what other wraparound services they would need. Both schools also collaborate with community partners, and at Roscoe Nix, we collaborated with the Summer Rise program. So we have at least 15 high school interns working in our building. The Project Lead the Way program at Springbrook High School, and those students are also with us for the summer. And as well as the Montgomery County Recreation Department Excel Beyond the Bell program for their first ever summer Excel Beyond the Bell program at Roscoe Nix. So we thank all of our community partners for working with us. It is important to note that the opening of schools with such a unique schedule does come with some challenges. Being able to provide an uninterrupted period of time for our staff to end a school year, relax, reset, and refresh before starting a new school year. Recruiting, hiring, and processing newly hired staff, especially those from other counties whose school schedules impact their transition time with us. And handling the impact of student attendance with families who may have moved but not informed of school, families who need to take extended time away from school to handle family businesses, and the addition of new students when we return from the break. But despite these challenges, both Roscoe Nix and Arcola school communities continue to come together to work collaboratively to develop a program that provides access and opportunity so that all of our students can thrive. At this time, I would like to introduce one of our staff members, Ms. Amanda Beitzer. Ms. Beitzer has worked at Roscoe Nix for well over 10 years. She's been played a pivotal role in the implementation of the Innovative School Calendar as part of the implementation team and the ad hoc committee. Ms. Beitzer?
Thank you. Good afternoon. At Roscoe Nix, we are very intentional about building a community of support for all of our teachers. We strive to create an environment that is rooted in psychological safety so that all staff feel comfortable taking risks and asking for help as needed. Relationships are key to creating this safe space, and team building is therefore an ongoing process throughout the year. Just as the needs of our student population are diverse, so are the needs of our teachers. We therefore have a wide array of supports available to meet these diverse needs. With the support of instructional leaders such as the reading specialist, math content coach, Project Lead the Way and primary talent development coach, and the staff development teacher, teams begin long-range planning and studying the curricula during pre-service. This work continues as teams meet twice a week for curriculum study meetings during the school year. Instructional leaders are able to build off of the work done at the team level to support teachers with the implementation of the curricula by providing time for one-on-one support in planning, observing, and/or modeling lessons. Support for teachers is a continuous process. Throughout the year, the staff development teacher holds monthly meetings specifically designed for new teachers to provide them with information and training that they may need that veteran teachers may not, such as just how to set up their gradebook. Several of our ISY early release days will be utilized for school-wide professional development as well as further long-range planning meetings. Additionally, we hope to replicate the individual professional development days we were able to provide to all classroom teachers last year to work with an instructional coach and participate in peer observations. Building a community of support for teachers is an important endeavor at any school, and one that we are working to strengthen each year at Roscoe Nix. As an innovative school, however, it is a challenge for us to hire new staff in a timely manner in order to get a jump start on providing them with the necessary support before the first day of school. Because the majority of our new teachers are hired from outside of MCPS, there is an additional level of support we need to provide, since they need training on Benchmark, Eureka, and Project Lead the Way, in addition to training on various resources and platforms teachers use, such as Synergy. But despite these challenges, we work hard at Roscoe Nix to ensure that our new teachers feel supported as we welcome them into our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beitzer. Next slide, please. At this time, I will turn the presentation back over to Mr. Jean-Philippe, who will discuss attendance and academic data.
Thank you, Ms. Folks. Throughout the year, attendance and enrollment rates are closely monitored. On the screen, you will see attendance rates for this year's first day of school. This year is an 8 to 10% decline from last year, with last year's rates at Arcola was 85 and 8/10%, while Nix's first day last year was 87 and 82/100%. However, there were some key reasons for the differences in the changes for this year. The first day of school started July 6th in the middle of the week, in the middle of the 4th of July holiday week. And the second observation was that the first day of school was an early release day for students. Finally, during our outreach to parents, we noticed a trend in some cases where parents were aware of the first day of school, but there were some families using the time to reconnect with families in other countries or travel that they had not been able to do during the pandemic time. We believe these factors are impacting attendance and will continue to engage in our outreach to our communities. Next slide, please. There was data analysis for math and literacy in one of the OSA reports, Office of Shared Accountability reports. At 5th grade, we found that Hispanic students who qualified for free and reduced meals performed better than 5th grade students in comparable schools. Data analysis and progress monitoring is a best practice that is ongoing at both schools with the use of various data points. As a result, both schools are able to identify strategies based on a review of data in order to promote comprehensibility, clarity of learning for students. Both schools utilize student voice data to determine interventions, support for literacy. Focus teachers, ESOL teachers, and para-educators are strategically assigned to support student needs based on data. Next slide, please. I will now hand it over to Mrs. Morris to discuss how we will look ahead with the lens on system priorities.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So briefly, we wanted to share the next level of work with regard to program implementation and program evaluation, which is centered around alignment efforts to the strategic priorities, assessing the changing needs, and really engaging in the community school design, which fosters engagement with our community. I hear that the video is queued up, so we're going to end on a positive note before we turn it over for discussion to the board. So if you could queue up the video. It's coming. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Star Wars great or?
No, it's going to be amazing.
All right, Ryan, go straight in, okay? 3rd grade.
Today is the first day of school here at Arcola Elementary School.
My room is 112, 4th grade 112.
We here at Arcola, along with Roscoe Nix Elementary School, are the 2 schools in the county that begin the first day of school on July 6th. We have 30 extra days of school. More school means more success for the students, more learning.
As they were coming in this morning, you could see the excitement on their faces, being able to return not only to see their friends, but to be in a new grade. We are a primary school, so our students are pre-K through 2nd grade. They are excited to be back with their friends and to interact with their teachers.
First day of kindergarten, yeah. Feeling good, excited. It's a huge moment.
I'm gonna have fun.
Yeah, you are.
First day of school, we were getting familiarized with the kids, showing them our routines and procedures, just getting them the feel of the classroom, letting them get to know us, we're getting to know them.
Are we ready? Yes. I hear the excitement. Are we ready? Yes.
So far, so good. They're excited. They seem to be liking the class so far, so yeah.
I'm excited to be really smart. This is the way. We start our day. We get the knowledge. To go to college.
We are hoping that now that we've had a full year of the Innovative School Year in person under our belts, that the students will come in and it will just be back to the routines and procedures that they have been used to.
For this school year, I'm hoping that, all the kids learn, they have fun, and they're happy here at school.
Thank you. So, told you it was going to be great, and I got to stop by. Roscoe Nix when the students were arriving, and the smiles were contagious. So, at this point, we wanted to turn it over to the board for questions or discussion.
Thank you. You know, we got to visit the first week of school at Roscoe Nix in Arcola, and the energy level there was just amazing. I want to thank you for sharing your students with us that day and letting us have lunch with them. So, Ms. Mandrowski.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I think it's really exciting seeing the work that you all are doing in the schools and with the kids, and I love the feeling that the kids are excited about being there and not feel like they're stuck there during summer. I think that that's really important to the success of the program. 2 quick questions. Number one, what role, as coming from policy committee, what role do you all play in the development of the calendar for the innovative school year? And I'm asking because I guess as a committee, I'm not sure that we spend as much time focusing on that calendar as we do the general calendar, specifically because I didn't notice that you started on a half day, the middle of 4th of July week.
So there is a lot of processes and dialogue, as you well know, to go to develop the MCPS calendar. And so we get the portion that deals with the innovative school by subcommittee, and the committee looks at all of the options that are given to us based on the constant dialogue that's going up to the MCPS side, that's coming back to the innovative school side, which there's a committee that consists of teachers from both school, staff members from the Title I office. So there's a work to look at that. Feedback from our parents, and that's kind of how certain things move when we hear from our parents that they provide feedback. So there's a whole process to look at the calendar with voice and data collection and things that help us to make the final suggestions back to MCPS, which there's a bigger picture.
Okay, good, because I mean, obviously the attendance aspect is really important and very key to the success as well. And then my only other question is, I'm very pleased to see this map data, and I'm just wondering if the rest of the academic data looks similar, or if you've had a chance to evaluate. I know it's been hard because we kind of started it and then COVID, and it's not good measuring times, but do we have any other data, and if so, does it all look as good as that does?
So there is some longitudinal data that suggests the progress of students from the primary grades and up. And there were some positive trends that can be seen in the study that was done by Office of Shared Accountability. As we continue to monitor all data points, we want to be able to capture where we are, because there's a lot of variability to what impacted the data over the last 4 years.
Okay.
Thank you. So as Mr. Jean-Philippe indicated, there is longitudinal data. We also have Dr. Addison on the line, who may be able to speak to the report that the Office of Shared Accountability has worked on. Dr. Addison?
Sure. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Jean-Philippe actually shared it well in terms of what was found. We can ensure that if the board has not yet received the report, we can share that as well. But ideally, the results weren't as promising as what was indicated for the Hispanic Latino students receiving farms. And as was indicated, the one thing to keep in mind is the impact of the pandemic. And so it is promising to see that even during the pandemic that we found those promising outcomes for those students. And so we will continue to support the schools using the innovative school calendar as it relates to the analysis and the impact of their work.
Thank you. Are there, Dr. Joftis?
Yeah. Hi, thanks. So first of all, thank you. This is really exciting. I think this is exactly the kind of work we need to do, and I really like the idea from the system perspective of trying it in a couple schools, looking at how you all are doing given very challenging, unprecedented times, and then considering expansion. I do want to ask about the innovative part of the innovative schools calendar. So I love the incorporation of kind of the community school model. I'm a little involved in some work in Texas where they're kind of investing millions of dollars statewide on extended school day and school year. And a few of the things that are finding that I would love to just hear if you're thinking this way or maybe it's already happening, is to not just extend the amount of time, but to really think a little bit differently about how we use that time. So for example, building in much more teacher collaboration. That, for example, strikes me that in addition to being a good practice from a professional development standpoint, might also address some of the teacher turnover and teacher burnout issues. So I think almost every day in many of these schools in Texas, they're finding times for teachers to collaborate and give students brain breaks during those time. And those brain breaks can be recess, or they could also be various types of electives. So you mentioned Project Lead the Way, which is great. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to sort of think about expanding in other areas like the arts and so forth like that. And then I think also, I mean, this is probably a longer term question or maybe objective, is you've mentioned sort of this project-based learning and really trying to, I don't know how to ask this question exactly, but beyond sort of Project Lead the Way, are we trying to infuse that throughout the day? So my understanding is Project Lead the Way is sort of more engineering focused. Is that accurate?
It's actually aligned with our science standards.
Okay.
And so as the teachers are implementing this program, it starts with a project in mind. As an example, the kindergarten students have to build a beanstalk that will hold an egg. And so they will go through the whole collaboration and problem-solving piece, and they will try different methods, but it is aligned with what they're doing in science. And one of the things that we have done over the years that we've implemented it is the first year we were just trying it out with 1 or 2 modules, but as the science standards were upgraded and we were looking at the alignment with Project Lead the Way, we're now actually able to do it at least 2 or 3 marking periods during the year. I believe in our COLA you do it for all 4 marking periods as the students are engaged in that. And we actually started doing that now for the summer days that they're in school. That was part of the feedback that we had from parents, is that they wanted it to start earlier and be a part of the everyday instructional program. But I also wanted to mention, in addition to the Project Lead the Way program, our other signature program is the mindfulness piece. And as you talk about giving students brain breaks, we do start our day with a mindful moment. Teachers set up mindfulness corners within their classrooms. And we have, last year we worked with a mindfulness coach who went in to provide support not only to students, but to staff. We would have morning meditations and even yoga for staff in the building. So between those 2 programs, I believe we're providing some of the aspects of what you are working on with the schools in Texas.
So I guess just more broadly, just as you all are getting some traction under you and some time under you, and then also to the extent that we're building out to additional schools, if we could really be thinking about we're going to be talking about charter schools later, so almost like how can we use these schools as sources of learning and innovation, I think would be so exciting. You're already starting that, obviously, with much of the work you're doing, but just really trying to lean into that, I would certainly encourage that a great deal.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Joftis. I wanted to comment on what you were sharing, because you are right on target for why these schools were established. We said that we wanted to be able to call them innovative calendar, not just to be innovative towards a calendar, but what are we able to do at those schools and learn from that can replicate learning and other things like staff retention that we know have been impacting our high impacted schools. And we're already on some of the cusps of that. That's why I appreciate in the presentation you brought up some of the things that you're doing. And thank you so much for sharing the things that the leadership and the the staff would be doing. Miss
Galvin.
Galvin, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Galvin. I really thank you for that because it resonated when you talked about even your first year as a teacher. When we think about what matters for our teachers, we have to think about the first year teacher versus the veteran teacher versus the teacher who's in the middle, and how do we address it? And we only hear about the successful practice from those who are serving in those roles. So with that said, Dr. Joftis, one thing that we've been reflecting on with the research team is they're going into their fourth year. And 2 years and a quarter of that time was impacted by COVID-19. So essentially, we're looking at the fact that our innovative calendar schools had 3/4 of a normal, that's right, whatever normal is now, before COVID circumstance. That's it, 3/4. And so even as we look at the data and the research, we have to put that context into it because, of course, I see that as, in some ways, as a limitation of the data because the circumstances were so different. Now, I believe moving forward, we now have 2 sets of data. What were some things that we've learned from these schools as we would all of our other schools during COVID-19, and then what are some things that we can really look at for our innovative calendar schools differently and separately. So I want to thank you for elevating that because that's exactly where we are. And again, the 2 things that we're highlighting in this program that we will continue to look for and share back with the board and the community, because we should ask the question, is this worth a continued investment moving forward? What are we learning from it? Would be, what is happening as a result of student learning in these schools based on the programs and adjustments, and what are we learning about staff retention and leadership implications and all of those pieces that they've shared, because it will not only help these schools, but other schools that are high-impact schools.
And I would add a third objective, so achievement, staff retention, and I would add sort of how do we sort of break this very traditional approach to teaching and learning, right? So if we can create models through the great work that you all are doing, where we're building on kind of Project Lead the Way and mindfulness and some of the other things as models for other schools to learn from and to break free of the sort of sit and get that many of our schools are still doing. And we need to sort of start to break from that, I think will be really important.
Thank you, Dr. Joftis. We thank you so much for that comment. A part of what you said was our due diligence to look at what's happening elsewhere around the nation for education. We aren't the only school district trying new and different things, and looking and figuring out who's doing what is also a great opportunity for us to learn. So we will do due diligence with that and think about how that applies to what we see as opportunities here in Montgomery County. Thank you.
Ms. Harris.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a few questions. And the first is, last summer, I had the opportunity to visit both Arcola and Nix early in the school year. And I so appreciated being able to be there and see the energy and how the staff and the students and the families create such a vibrant community. So one question I have for Ms. Folks and Mr. Jean-Philippe is, now that you are also, innovative school calendar schools, Title I schools, Excel Beyond the Bell, and now you're also community schools. How, and I think Ms. Folks mentioned it a little bit, how is now being community schools enhancing your ability to sort of serve students and families and also see what we can do with an extended school year?
I'll speak, and then I'll let Mr. Jean-Philippe share. One of the exciting things that one of the things that we are very excited about in being a community school is that we filled the role of community school liaison internally. And we filled it with one of our ESOL teachers who is already a a focus in the community. She's a presence in the community. She's out front every morning greeting parents and students. And she has a level of excitement with this position that is just going through the roof. I have to calm her down. Wait a minute, food pantry, wait. But I think it will allow us to provide even more to our families that we may have had some restrictions on before due to just accessibility. So we're looking forward to, we have a parent support fair coming up this Friday where we're going to be giving out diapers and wipes and helping parents sign up for Parent View and helping parents do their farms forms and doing Chromebook distribution. So we're just so excited about what we can do. We just have to harness that excitement and realize that we can't do it all at once, but I think our staff is excited and our families are excited about what's to come as being a community school this year. And Mr. Jean-Philippe has already been a community school, so he can share some of what his school has done.
I think as Dr. Joptis was, as Dr. Joptis was sharing is where are we going and what are you trying to do? The aspect of having the community school resources really helps us in our creativity with the time to be creative. Also having the community school resources, it really supports our teachers who were already great advocates for parent empowerment. And so, and by parent empowerment at Arcola, we mean engaging and involving our parents and equipping them for what they need to be successful. And so it's given us another dimension in terms of having more resources that we can align to supporting our parents while we're being innovative. This past year, one thing that came up for us was having more motivation for our students with all of what was going on. So we did things in terms of field trips and and some of our parents, and so the board members know how I am about my school, so forgive me, you've seen me, so you know how I get. So one of my parents and one of my kids came to me and he said, I was so glad to go on that trip because he lives across the street from the school. And he said, I had never been on a school bus. And so many of the kids had never been to the zoo. He had always been to the zoo. His family took him to the zoo, but his whole thing was, I was so glad, Mrs. Jean-Philippe, to ride the school bus. You are the greatest principal. And so we're able to be creative to promote hope with the resources that we have, and it allows us just another dimension to look at success for students.
You. And during the presentation, and I can't remember who it was that specifically alluded to this, but there was a mention that many of the teachers that come to our ESY schools come from outside MCPS. So they need, that they have that bit of a learning curve. And so I'm just wondering, when you say a lot of the teachers that come to our ESY schools come from outside MCPS, is that they're brand new teachers or they are actually coming from outside MCPS? And does that mean they're coming from school systems that already are using the ESY model?
I can speak to the new hirees that we had this year. We actually hired new teachers from Prince George's County who were experienced teachers. This year, we only hired one novice teacher, and that was actually an internal hire, one of our paraeducators, who is now a first-year teacher for the first year. However, the teachers that we did hire this year from outside of Montgomery County came in with years of teaching experience. So it was just for them to learn the curriculum. Some of them were already familiar with Eureka. One was familiar somewhat with Benchmark, but it's also coming in and learning, as I like to call it, the MCPS way, and being really learning what the culture is and how things kind of flow in a different school system. But those were our new hires this year.
I'm going to say over time, I haven't found it different from when I was a traditional school of recruiting and retention in terms of where we're getting our staff from. So my experience was pretty similar in terms of new staff and people who just want to be a part of a great school system. And so people coming to MCPS is actually a good thing. That's what I've experienced.
I just wanted to respond. too, Lynn, to tell you that when we were there, I asked them about the retention rate and whether people were leaving because they have an extended school year. And actually, they weren't having any issues with that. They had them at first, you know, with the people who probably did not want to do innovative school, but I was surprised to find that they were not having any retention issues. I'm
Great.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the last question I have gets to, you mentioned that attendance, first day of school, dropped this year from last year. And I'm just wondering, two-part question, have you seen attendance rebound now over the past couple of weeks? And this was a question that we kind of talked about during our visit. When you have students who don't show up until the first day of the traditional school calendar, how do you, how do the teachers actually adapt their learning to embrace students who have essentially at that point missed several weeks, well, about a month and a half of instruction?
I would love to have Ms. Garvin delve into that because she's one of our teachers.
Well, I can only really speak to my own experience, but I have all my students currently attending. So yes, I did see a full rebound after the first day of school within my classroom. And as you speak to, we, rather than getting current, like students who aren't showing up, I really see new transfer overs of like people that have moved and they didn't realize that, our COLA was an ISY and they're enrolling them in September. So we get a lot of new enrollments. And when you ask about how do we support students with catching them up on what they missed, it's like any student that we receive in the beginning of the year. Through data and assessment, we can see where they're lacking and there's areas of growth, and we support them through interventions and support and pick up right where we would if you were to receive any child throughout the school year. And I actually feel like it's a more of a better community that they're coming in because the community is established for that first 30 days. So the routines are there, there's students that are helpful and they know what to do. So it's a very inviting and warm place for them to start off in September. So I don't really see it as a huge factor, except that, of course, we would love those students to get that extra learning.
And as a school, that's something we continue to work on and consider as we're receiving new students in the fall, and to continue to make it a better experience for them. That experience is kind of a consistent Arcola experience with what Ms. Garvin identified.
And I would just like to share that one of the best practices that we do is that when we do return the first week that the traditional schools return, we have our teachers actually use that week as a review week. And because we will have students coming in who, as Ms. Garvin mentioned, they moved into the neighborhood, but nobody told them that Roscoe Nick started on July 6th. And plus, our first marking period is longer than everyone else's. We have a 75-day, approximately 75-day first marking period. So we have a little wiggle room to do some of those types of things. So when we come back on the 29th, the teachers will, again, reestablish routines and procedures, do a little bit of review of the curriculum so that everyone can be brought up to the same level.
Thank you. Ms. Silvestri.
Just back to the attendance question. So what percentage do you feel that attendance is now? You said it was 70-something at the first day, but what is it now?
So I want to be more accurate, but with a generality of around 80% that we're moving towards there, but I would have to go back and confirm to have accurate numbers.
Yeah. I also visited and saw just wonderful things happening in the classroom and in the hallways, and just the value of summer school and extended school year is priceless. I'm always have my radar on in the community when I see kids that are not in school. And in the summertime, we think that kids are on vacation at the beach, but they're not. Not everyone is. Oftentimes in restaurants, you see the waitress's child sitting at the table doing something just to stay busy or on a phone. I once saw a woman, a building service woman in a private building, and the child was on her phone next to her janitor's cart while she was cleaning offices. So this is the need and the value of summer programming, whether it be extended school year or summer school, is our kids need to be learning. They're not being enriched in summer camps, not all of them are. And so at Arcola, you emphasize both the academic need, the academic purpose of summer extended school year, but also the safety and safety net that our schools provide. And so just want to thank you for your continued work in making these models work even better. And as we move forward to a hopefully more normal year, looking forward to that additional evaluation that's going to happen, Dr. McKnight, so we can get the full picture. Well, we have some preliminary data, but we want to get a more fair and complete picture of the effectiveness of these programs. And also very happy to hear about creating a culture where new teachers, but also all teachers and staff can feel like they can authentically share and be vulnerable and be supported, but also I heard something along the lines of creating a culture where they can share their experiences without fear or feel like that their feedback is valued. So I appreciated hearing that. And I think all my other questions have been answered. Thank you.
Dr. Daca.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mr. Jean-Philippe for letting me visit his school before the close down, and I apologize, because folks, I haven't been to yours, and I missed the meeting that the board members and Dr. McKnight just went to. I wasn't able to be there, but it sounds like it was a wonderful experience for everybody. And I just wanted to say that before COVID, when I visited your school, there was such dedication from the staff, and they were just beginning to learn how this worked, how supportive they were of the students, and the students were absolutely lovely. So thank you for that. I want to take us to slide 14 because Ms. Bondrowski started us thinking about this. But I only wanted to say that this doesn't look, okay, you need to know that this is significant, that your population is very large in terms of students who speak other languages or Hispanic students. And it's not like you have 5 or 6 and then you're comparing them with the whole county. You've got a lot of kids there that you're really doing some wonderful work with. And it will be very beneficial to the other schools that have large populations that really need that kind of work. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to thank you for the presentation and taking your time to come over and share with us your experiences today. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back now. Are the pre-K kids there yet? Because I said I wanted to come when the pre-K kids came. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
At this time, we're up to item number 7. I will ask Dr. McKnight to proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. As we have members of the team join us at the table, today we're going to discuss and take action on our charter school application, the MBEF College and Career Academies Incorporated MECCA Business Learning Institute. So every year, our public schools are required to implement a process, well, public schools are required to implement a process for our charter schools to engage in if there is an interest in them submitting a proposal to be considered. Applications are made available to the public, and technical assistance is provided to any team that presents forward an application, which is why we see Dr. Marcus and Ms. Hazel here, because they have been a part of the process of assisting those teams. The charter school application must be submitted by the first business day in the month of April. They are aware of that timeline and are diligent to making sure that if they want to submit an application, it is submitted by that time. This year, as in previous years, MCPS assembled an internal and external expert panel of members representing curriculum and assessment, operations, finance, parents, guardians, and all of our employee associations. And that team of experts come together to really look at the application process and to consider proposals and to be able to share with us some of the insight that they have given their specific areas of expertise that should be considered. Panel members reviewed the charter school application and participated in an interview with the candidate. During our June 28th Board of Education meeting, MCPS staff shared the panel review, including the strengths and areas of concern. Some of the strengths that we shared in our last meeting on the June 28th meeting was that there was an improved financial outlook that was shared back with us. And there was an articulated educational philosophy that was shared with us. And we also talked about the founder's experience around school leadership that represented some strengths that we saw in the process. Some of the areas of concern that we talked about that I'll remind us of that conversation was there were concerns around facility funding streams. There were concerns around a possible deficit balance that could exist, and questions regarding the applicants being able to meet the enrollment requirement, particularly around the fact that location was changed in the process since the initial application. And so MBLI presented and had an opportunity to seek questions from the board in their last presentation. So following that meeting, MCPS staff, again, Dr. Marcus and Ms. Hazel, met with the MBLI staff to seek additional information and clarification, and today the board will act on the application and determine whether or not they will be permitted to operate within our school system. With that, welcome, Dr. Marcus. I'll turn it over to you.
How's everyone today? Great, so we'll go to the next slide. So the MBEF College and Career Academies Business Learning Institute is a proposed public charter school designed as a college preparatory and vocational school for middle and high school students with a business education theme. And on the next slide we have here, we were going to discuss some of the strengths and concerns. I'm only going to highlight a few because Dr. McKnight really summed it up nicely for us. And I think the biggest one in terms of areas of strength is to talk about the Maryland State Grant, which is a $900,000 grant that they've received. And in terms of areas of concern, again, we just wanted to make sure that they were able to secure the funding to acquire a building and renovate and furnish it. In terms of reviewing that slide, the application, we also identified areas of collaboration to further have discussions with MBLI regarding transportation, facility financial requirements, enrollment projections because of PPA, it's hinged on that, also for student services and staffing. So that sums it up in terms of a quick overview in terms of what we heard at the end of June and now. And we've identified that all contingencies must be met by July 1st of 23 if they are approved. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Wolf, who will navigate the question and answer portion.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Ms. Silvestri.
Could you explain what you mean by contingencies?
So in the superintendent's recommendation, there are contingencies outlined in order that they had to meet by next July. And basically it was been able to show that they were able to come up with funding for the building, for furnishing and renovation.
Okay, I heard Dr. McKnight express 3 concerns. And I see that you have only one on your slide, which is facilities. But she talked about a deficit balance and enrollment requirements. Can you talk a little bit about those?
So we've been in conversation with MBLI, and we really addressed many of those issues and found that the facilities, in terms of making sure that they have the funding, is the one that stood out. In terms of what were the other 2?
The other was being able to gauge enrollment. When the initial application came, there was an interest in the facility being in another part of the county, and that facility changed, and so there was some questions, a discussion around working with the community to clearly understand what the enrollment could look like in a different area of the county.
And those are conversations that we've had with MBLI, and they're actually here with us today, and they've talked about what their plans are to ensure that they have enrollment, because as we know, enrollment is connected with PPA, per pupil allocation. So yes, enrollment is an important piece, and MBLI realizes that also, and they have a plan to address it. And I don't know if you want MBLI to talk about the plan, or?
Yeah, I would like to hear a little bit about it, because it's a big change to go from East County to Gaithersburg, and that's a little concerning to me.
Okay. Ms. Graham, would you like to address that, or MBLI? Welcome.
How you doing, everybody? Thank you so much for the opportunity to respond. So I guess the biggest piece, one, is that we are talking about two separate applications. Actually, this is not a replacement. So the Tacoma Park Silver Spring, let's park that one. All of that data is really just reserved for that application. We then switched our efforts in totality to then sort of focus in Gaithersburg in terms of our community planning. But what we do in terms of tutoring, in terms of support to students, in terms of how we work with our mentees is across the state. So we are in multiple areas at any given time, because our kids come from all over: Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Howard County, various areas. And so what we found was that we had another group that was in that Gaithersburg space. And so we started exploring sort of those needs as it related to the other subset of students that we encountered from the Tacoma Park and Silver Spring data group. So this application is separate and apart from that application, but we did do a community-based effort around trying to understand the needs of the students that we were working with that are in the Gaithersburg area. Being connected to the Boys and Girls Clubs and through the sports pieces, we have a lot of varied interest and various opportunities to connect with the students. And so our being able to sort of pivot is really what this was. While the Tacoma Park piece was sort of held and sort of on hold, we just pivoted to sort of look at other need-based areas within the county and then directed our efforts into that space, if that makes sense.
Okay. And can you talk about the deficit balance? Can you go a little bit into that, Dr. McKnight? Can you talk a little bit about what you were talking about?
I believe we have Carly here also from the budget office who can discuss it. Carly is an MCPS member.
Okay.
Is she here? Okay, I know she had planned on coming. Is there any way to get her? I don't know.
Dr. Marcus, I can sort of speak to that. It was not necessarily a deficit. It was a misunderstanding of the actual application. So attachment 3, which is what MCPS uses to convey for applicants to convey the budget, that document, the way that it is set up, does not provide a lot of explanation around the cost and the numbers and the figures that are contained in the attachment. And so what there appeared to be was a misunderstanding of what we had reflected as our capital expenditures, and the budget office was trying to understand, making sure that we were clear about what those numbers were and how they were reflected in the other subsections that are in attachment 3. So we were able to speak to that with both the budget director and the assistant that Dr. Marcus is mentioning, Carly, to clarify that information for them. But there was actually no deficit in our documentation. It was just a clarification around how we had explained the cost in the attachment 3.
And as she was saying early on, we did have that as a concern, but MCPS met with MBLI to review the budget, and Yvonne declared that, that's not a concern anymore. The biggest concern has been able to get the funds for the facility and so on.
Okay. Right. At some point in the discussion, and I think this is kind of all just connected because we've had a number of conversations. Someone mentioned it earlier when we were thinking about the per pupil allocation. I connect that with the enrollment because, of course, we're looking at the financials piece of the school systems and use of its resources as it relates to being able to support the program, and some of that was just some of the questions that was raised before. Maybe deficit wasn't was trying to figure out the budget piece, but the other part was, what are some of the resources that the school system will continue to use and support to help support the program, whether it may be transportation, facility, as it relates to costs that may come up, all of those pieces. So I wanted to bring that back to some comments that were made.
Does anybody else have any questions? Ms. Mandrowski?
Yeah, just one quick question in reference to the curriculum and how it's alignment with MCPS's curriculum and what that looks like in terms of being aligned. I don't know a better way to say it, but how, what areas would be different, how MCPS's oversight falls into any of that kind of thing.
Well, I'll start, and then if the charter school can continue. The curriculum resources that are outlined in the application are aligned to the Common Core standards and are approved by Ed Reports, which is the same reporting system that we use to rate curriculum. So we did look at that, but they also have some programmatic components as it aligns with the financial program, portion of their program for students, that I think they could speak to since it's their program. But in terms of the actual content curriculum, it is aligned to the Common Core state standards.
Thank you, Nikki. And so on the business side, which is our education theme and our sole purpose in starting this effort, we have modeled our programming around a couple different pieces, which are very popular and have been around for generations, including the programming from Junior Achievement, Vanguard. There are several pieces that we were able to work, several groups that we were able to work with and sort of develop sort of a blended model for the middle school group based on several national programs.
And many of our, good afternoon, I'm Tracy Cooper. And many of our curricular standards, again, are modeled after next generation science standards, Common Core state standards, and the other parts of Maryland State Department of Education standards for all of the core subjects and our, what we consider our extra, our elective courses such as language arts or language arts, as well as physical education, etc.
Thank you. Mr. Kim.
I think Board Member Smondrowski's question more so pertains to MCPS in specific, instead of in relation to the Common Core and state curriculum standards. So if someone could speak more to how, to what extent these curriculums at the county and the school would be aligned.
So MCPS uses the Common Core state standards, and so the actual curriculum resources that they are proposing are not the same as MCPS, but the standards and indicators are the same. And so that is one thing that we looked for to make sure that there was that kind of alignment. My understanding, and you all can confirm, is that the assessments would be different, aligned to the curriculum that's being used. However, external assessments such as our state assessments would be the same. It's my understanding. I believe there are some slight changes as it relates to what's aligned to the curriculum, but they will be using the same assessments that we will be using so that we have some way of measuring whether or not the students are making academic progress. So we will be using the same state standards that they are using.
That's what I was getting to, so thank you for that. I was also more, will the evidence of learning aspects be the same? And how we're measuring success of the students, both academically and in the program?
So they won't be able to use the same evidence of learning because they will be using different district assessments. And therefore, so they could use the classroom measure in a similar way, but their district measure would have to be different because they're using just different district assessments, and then their external could be the same. So we would have to work with the Office of Shared Accountability to figure out how we could compare the school.
And we anticipate, as much as we've discussed in many of our meetings with Montgomery County, we are very excited to partner throughout this process to ensure that we maintain the excellence and integrity of the Montgomery County mission and vision, and that will be in place. We will ensure through our collaboration that students are able to be both assessed and the data that we collect makes sense in context of the way that Montgomery County works, as well as our innovation and design, so that it makes an alignment and collaboration that works best for the students that we service, again, to continue the same level of excellence through the district.
Thank you. Ms. Ms. Silvestri.
Yes, I have some concerns about the financial viability of the school, given enrollment. Our school system has seen a decline in enrollment for the last few years, well, since the pandemic and this year. And so if we are having a lower enrollment, then I would expect this school to have the same enrollment challenges because it's the same pool of students. And then your ability to make the financial plan work because you're dependent on per pupil allocation. And so, again, if we're having enrollment deficits, then you're going to have enrollment deficits. And then your ability to make the plan fiscally viable. And I think in previous presentations, you said you would do fundraising, you would get, I guess loans was more for the facility, but we're in a very challenging financial place as a country with possible talks of recession, pressures on foundations to support emergency services because food prices are through the roof. So I guess that's my continued concern about the financial viability of the school. And I know that Ms. Hazel has indicated that we would help with enrolling students through our established choice program offerings to, I guess, fifth graders as they make plans for middle school. I guess my question to you, Ms. Hazel, is in the Up-County area, what choices do students and families have for middle school that this would be added on as another option? And are those schools traditionally at capacity, or are they under-enrolled? And if you don't have that at the tip of your tongue, I understand as well.
So we do have a number of choice programs Up-County, 3 specifically related to business and finance. And so this would be adding another to that area. And they are enrolled, sometimes a little under-enrolled. So I don't know if I would say there is a significant need for a finance program in this area, but we do have it currently existing. And I can get you the enrollment numbers if you'd like.
Thank you.
I do want to also just, going back to Ms. Mondrowski's question about the curriculum, so the content curriculum, when we look at our literacy or mathematics, so those are the types of things that were reviewed for alignment to our state standards. But if you all could give a little bit more information about the program, that finance program, particularly we got a lot of questions about microeconomy and a lot of questions about how students are rewarded for their involvement with the microeconomy. Could you talk a little bit more about that part of the program?
Okay, so I heard a couple of different things. So yes, so from a curriculum perspective, all of our curricula is aligned to state standards, which is the bar for determining student learning, right? And everything that we are doing will be able to be mapped to the Maryland report card, which is what the state uses to gather and compile and convey data on an annual basis. So that much we will do. As a part of our application process, we were required to develop and explain our goals and objectives within the categories of, we explain around student learning, we explain the professional goals for our students, our staff members, we explain our goals even around for our board members. And so as a part of that process, we have identified various metrics and various methods that we will use to sort of demonstrate successes in those spaces. So that is all thoroughly detailed in our application process, which we did for Montgomery County. So from a curriculum perspective, as it relates to our business programming, our plan is to function as a microeconomy so that we can model the concepts that are present out in the regular world for students. The difference with our program is that it is starting at the middle school level. This programming is not available at the middle school level. So while there are current pathways and learning opportunities available for students, those programs start at high school. So the difference for us is that we will be in this space and we will be able to start working with students earlier than them not encountering this information either in part, in whole or in part in high school. So that is a very important distinction about what we're doing. We are not just adding to another high school grouping. We're actually offering a very unique opportunity for elementary students to sort of begin to explore in the middle school space. And so that is, like I said, that's a very important distinction that we have to make sure that we make. And speaking to, I think it was board member, Vice President Silvestri, that mentioned how we're going to get the students. So nationally, charter schools, while the school systems may have noticed a decline or have experienced some sort of changes in their student enrollment, charter school enrollment is actually up. So this is really a unique opportunity for us to sort of gain students back into the school system that could have left for various reasons. So we feel like what we are presenting is a very unique space, being the first school that's coming into the county and exposing students to this education information in middle school. And so that'll be a very important part of our marketing plans as we go out and formally convey that we have we are coming to Gaithersburg and what we're doing. And so we think that be our ability to market what we're doing as a unique program for middle school students and as an expanded option for the middle school students is going to be very helpful with us, making sure that we match our enrollment plans. Also, as a part of our application development, we did several layers of enrollment sensitivity analysis at both the 5, 10, and 15% levels so that we could see that should our enrollment not match our plans or our targets for that year, where are we in danger? So again, we tried 5, 10, and 15% to see how many students that look like and what we would need to sort of change or adjust or delay in order to compensate for those variances. And so we're very confident in our ability to be able to, as we're doing from one application to another, to be able to pivot in these scenarios. And then I think there was one other question that Silvestri had mentioned, and I don't know if I covered it all, but just, suffice it to say that we are not trying to add any sort of arduous work to the staff members. We have attempted to think as thoroughly as possible about all of these spaces. We've thought about contingencies in all of these spaces, creating plan A's and plan B's and even plan C's. And so we think that through collaboration, we can ensure that we are, as Tracy mentioned, able to sort of maintain the standard of excellence that Montgomery County has for its students and its staff and for its community at large.
And I will add in that our microeconomy is designed to, again, be a choice of learning to support students as they explore business and economics to see what challenges and problems are really present and how we can begin to resolve them. Again, the goal and our goal is to blend theory and practice to create unique opportunities and innovation for students. Much like we heard earlier from one of your innovative calendar schools discussing Project Lead the Way and how projects are used at a younger age, we are applying this model in middle school level to hopefully coordinate a much more targeted approach to support middle school students, because oftentimes within the middle school spectrum, those students are often become disenfranchised and begin to pull away from the academic experience. Oftentimes we have heard parents discuss the challenges of transitioning from elementary to middle, and our goal is to encourage and engage the middle school student a little bit more effectively with our programming and our projects based upon business learning.
And lastly, I just remembered the other part. It was about the data from whether the schools were over-enrolled. And so we looked at 3 or 4 of the middle schools in the Gaithersburg space, and all of those schools are actually over-enrolled or at capacity with the facility space. And so we even looked at some of the elementary schools. We looked at about 7 or 8 schools total in developing our projections and our plans. And all the schools that are in that Gaithersburg sector, as of, I think it was 9:30 2021 was the most recent year. I don't know that 2022 was available. I think we used 2021 data. That data was reflective of schools that were sort of over capacity. And so we believe that we will be an added value to the Gaithersburg community. We have been working with these students in various areas. And so we're confident that we will provide a wealth of new information and new supports and add value to Nikki Hazel's container of schools as a new function and a new opportunity for students in Gaithersburg.
Okay. Let me just first, did you want to respond to something?
No, I didn't want to respond.
Dr. Daka?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate what you're saying about connecting with the high schools and having something from elementary to middle school that has to do with financial literacy, because we know, or financial everything, in the courses that are at the high school level. I still have a concern about the enrollment. It means, in my mind, it means a lot of transportation is going to be involved because of the location. And it's true that the schools in Gaithersburg are over capacity at the moment. However, I think there's a financial concern that's bigger than that, that has to do with making sure that they have a building that's going to be viable for them. So I just have a problem with those two financial things. And you've already tried to explain about the curriculum. You are using the standards for the state. I'm not totally comfortable with the fact that it's going to be meeting the standards of the school system. It's just going to be different, so.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? So at this time, Dr. McKnight, would you like to proceed?
Yes, we did bring forward a resolution for a charter school, MECCA charter school application. I'll read the resolve. Therefore be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education approves the application of the MECCA Business Learning Institute to operate a public charter school in Montgomery County, Maryland, beginning in the 24-25 school year, as described in the application, conditionally approved today, July 26, 2022, and contingent upon MECCA Business Learning Institute demonstrating by July 1, 2023, its ability to meet the financial requirements and any state, federal, or local laws associated with attaining and renovating a building suitable for use as a public school in Maryland.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
Well, I move that the Board of Education reject the recommendation of the superintendent and deny the charter school application of Mecca Business Learning Institute. I need a second.
Turn your light on.
Are you seconding? I can second.
Is there any discussion? Would you like
I
to
just
share
want to add
their-
one little final thing to Dr. Daka's points. You know, I do have a lot of concerns about the transportation aspect. Gaithersburg is, while it may be a very dense area and the schools may be overcrowded to some extent, it is a extremely highly walking community, and that's been a big issue for us, even in terms of opening new schools and things like that. So that's just another aspect that troubles me.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to with transportation. It is a walking community for the most part, but I'm not sure how many could really walk to your program.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing,
Might we say anything, or is that inappropriate?
We're done.
we're actually in the middle of we're done, I think, taking comments. So we're at the point of voting. We have a motion and a second on the floor. I think, is that right? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Dr. Daka, would you like to restate your motion before we vote?
I move that the Board of Education reject the recommendation of the superintendent and deny the charter school application of NACA Business Learning Institute.
All in favor, raise your hand. Ms. Harris? Okay, that is Dr. Joftis, Mrs. Evans, Dr. Daka, Ms. Wolf, Ms. Silvestri, and Ms. Mandrowski, and Mr. Kim. So that is, Ms. Harris, are all opposed? That's Ms. Harris. So the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for your time. All right, at this time, we have a recess on the agenda. I'd like to.
Ms. Wolf, may I make a couple comments, please,
Sure.
before we move to the next item, if you don't mind? So just to make sure we recap the process, the board has denied the resolution to move forward and approve the application that I did share forward. It should be noted that MBLI is in the process of an appeal decision with the Maryland State Department of Education, and they have within 30 days to be able to hear back from that appeal. The state board will render a decision within 120 days of filing the appeal. And so if the state board reverses the decision, they may direct the board to do otherwise. So I just wanted to make sure I share that with you, but we will make every effort to keep the board updated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we have a recess on it. I'll take a motion to revise the agenda to skip the recess because we've had a request to do that. So
Staff ready? I was gonna say if
yeah, the
staff's ready.
staff is ready.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you want to move it?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Dr. McKnight, would you like to proceed?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Welcome back to the table, Ms. Hazel. And we are being joined by some additional staff. So I'm pleased to be joined by members of the MCPS team who are going to provide a report on the work of the District Assessment Committee. In spring of 2017, the General Assembly passed the More Learning, Less Testing Act of 2017. And this law requires the state board to adopt regulations that limit the amount of time devoted to federal, state, and locally mandated assessments. This law also requires school districts to ensure that all locally mandated assessments are clear in purpose, time-limited, worthy taking, high quality, and tied most importantly to the improvement of student learning. So every year, the Board of Education is required to establish a committee to review the assessments, and we're so glad to be able to have some members of the committee join us today. So Ms. Hazel and 3 members of the District Assessment Committee are here today to be able to share their work, what they have been learning, and their recommendations related to the More Learning, Less Testing Act that we are required to adhere to. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Hazel.
All right. Thank you very much. So good afternoon. The More Learning, Less Testing Act does require local school districts to limit the time devoted to mandated assessments. So for all of our schools, there is a 2.2% minimum required for testing. And for grade 8,
of minimum required instructional hours, but also to examine the time required to administer each assessment, determine if any of the assessments are duplicative, and also consider the purpose of assessment, the value of the feedback in improving student learning, as well as the timeliness of when those results are available.
Next slide, please. Good afternoon, President Wolf, Dr. McKnight, and the members of the board. The assessments that we examine per the More Learning, Less Testing Act are only those that are federal, state, and locally mandated. For example, the state requires that all students take the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program, known as MCAP, in several different subjects at different levels, and the student testing time for those assessments must be counted against that 2.2%. Local mandated assessments are those required by MCPS, and they can either be internal or external. For example, the measures of academic progress known as the MAP test, those are assessments in reading and math and are external assessments, but they're required by MCPS, so they must be counted. That's our internally created tests that we use. They are also required by MCPS and therefore also are an example of locally mandated assessments that we have to count towards the 2.2%. Examples of non-mandated assessments are those not included in the 2.2% limit are advanced placement and international baccalaureate test, SAT, PSAT, teacher-selected assessments, portfolios, or performance tasks, even if the teachers are pulling them from the MCPS curriculum. If it's not required, then we don't count it towards the mandated assessment. Also not counted are any individual assessments related to a student's 504 plan, individuals with disabilities, Education Act plans, or emerging multilingual learners. It is important to note that these specifications as to what is and is not included in the 2.2% are written explicitly in the More Learning, Less Testing Act.
Next slide, please. Good afternoon, President Wolf, Dr. McKnight, and members of the board. In our committee's first meeting, we worked together to develop a common understanding of assessments here in MCPS and the requirements of the More Learning, Less Testing Act. For the rest of our meetings, we worked primarily in 3 level groups: elementary, middle, and high school. These groups, as Ms. Hazel said before, consisted of various members of school communities, including staff, parents, and students. I would quickly like to recognize my fellow students, 2 middle, 2 high, school students, Maria Torres Benitez, Alani Bui, Falashade Babinu, and Muktika Gangavarapu. They did an incredible job and importantly contributed their point of view to this work. Central to our early work was a report of the 2019 committee. We examined their previous recommendations and their status to determine areas of review for our committee. For example, the previous committee made changes and began work on changes to the MAP tests, and today you'll hear recommendations on that test and others. We also focused our work on the projected assessment plan for 2022-2023, given the pandemic and impact on testing and recovery this year. As we examined the proposed assessments, OCIP content area supervisors were available to provide direct support and information about the assessments to help our work and our understanding. We will now share our committee's recommendations as well as the MCPS response.
Next slide, please. While the committee members worked primarily in those level groups, there were several recommendations and findings that were common to all 3 groups, elementary, middle, and high school. First, all groups found that the projected assessment time for the 22-23 required assessments fell below the limit of 2.2% of minimum required annual instructional hours. However, each group felt that while administrative time for tests, for example, breaks, distribution of materials, reading the directions, may not be counted towards the 2.2% testing limit, it is still important to examine that in order to understand the overall impact of testing on instructional time. All 3 groups had an interest in reduction in testing, whether a reduction in the length of some district assessments or the removal of an assessment during marking periods in which students are required to take more than 1 test in the same subject area. Finally, all groups agreed that increased communication about the assessments are required at each grade level, as well as the purpose and use of each assessment is essential, and it should be made widely available to schools, families, and the community.
Good afternoon. In response to the cross-level findings, one of the things that we've done and provided for you is, for information purposes and for discussion, is a second calculation. So in the memo, there is attachment E that has a calculation by grade level of assessments, and we've added a sample of what it looks like with administrative time. It differs across schools. There are different testing practices, different testing schedules, but it's a good snapshot for discussion purposes. In response to the desire for increased communication, OSIP is committed to creating an annual grade level assessment guide for parents and for students. That includes the purpose of assessments, what the results are used for, and to have that translated and to support it with a video. We have some specific testing reductions that we'll talk about in the presentation today. So in addition to cross-level recommendations, there are level-specific recommendations. So next slide, please. So our elementary school group asked us to look at reducing 4th marking period testing. And they asked us, the rest of the recommendations were around the timelines of the results. So they asked us to work with MSDE to see if we can improve the timeline of results so teachers could use them more early. And it also around the MISA, the Maryland Integrated Science Assessment, that we could get those results and get them into Performance Matters Unify more quickly. So in response to that, at this time, OSIP is committed to really, especially looking at grade 5, fourth marking period, because grade 5 has the MISA. And so the grade 5 and 5-6 district math assessments will be optional for the coming year as a way to reduce testing. We also are committed to advocating with MSDE around timelines and collaborating with the Office of Strategic Improvement around getting that information to teachers more quickly. And so Mrs. Alvarez will share middle school.
Okay, next slide, please. The middle school level group recommends that in addition to the cross-group recommendations, that the English Language Arts extended writing prompt should not be considered for the 2.2 assessment limit, as they are embedded in the curriculum and part of instruction over several days. We also recommend that the English Language Arts and English Language Developed end-of-unit assessments be shortened, and that MCPS explore replacing these end-of-unit assessments with other embedded performance-based tasks. In response to committee recommendations, the English Language Arts Marking Period 3 district assessment will be made optional. The extended writing prompts have been removed from the total assessment time calculation. However, the results will still be used in evidence of learning. These changes will also be applied at the high school level. And OSIP will review all district assessments during the 2022-2023 school year. And as part of this, we'll explore the recommendations to shorten the end-of-unit assessments and/or replace them with instruction-embedded performance tasks. Next, Sam Ross will show the high school recommendations.
Next slide, please. Oh, you already got it. The high school level group also recommends that district assessments be shortened so that most students can complete them within a realistic high school bell schedule, and that district assessments be taken out of calendar in course with the MCAP so that we're not duplicating the same content areas. Our group was also concerned that the impact of testing on class time and the schools varied across schools because of how different schools just administer those different tests. We recommend that MCPS look at different models, best practices, and work with schools, school administration to ensure common approaches and that every school is using the best practices available to decrease the impact on class time. The high school group also recommends that MCPS work with MSDE to recommend opportunities for students to obtain MCAP, AP, and IB exams in the same time frame, as some of those assessments can be taken as replacements for each other to fulfill different requirements for each other, all mandated by MSDE. Finally, we ask that when the information is available from MSDE, information about the impact of end-of-course assessments on grades and graduation be shared with families, students, staff, everyone who it impacts, because that will be a big change, and really so far we're not getting a ton.
In response, OCIP has planned a revision of all math progress checks during the 22-23 school year. As part of this, OSIP will ensure that only core content is being assessed in order to shorten the test where possible. As with middle school, the English Language Arts Marking Period 3 district assessments will be optional. Math Marking Period 4 district assessments will continue to be optional as they have been. OCIP will convey the recommendation to examine school testing schedules to the Office of School Support and Wellbeing and work with MSDE to determine opportunities for receiving more timely assessment feedback in order to be able to use that instructionally and be able to use that for school improvement. Additionally, information regarding the impact of the MCAP end-of-course assessments on grades and graduation will be included in that assessment guidance that MCPS is developing. Next slide.
So that's a lot. To summarize, as a reminder, this committee is supposed to meet every odd year, but because of the pandemic, we got a little off track. So we will meet again next school year just to make sure that we are keeping on track and monitoring the recommendations. And there were some other considerations that we tabled, and we will consider those for next school year as well. And just make sure that we are just continuing to be in tune with what we are hearing from our schools and making sure that the assessments are actually very meaningful to us as we are instructing our students. At this time, I just want to take a moment to thank Mr. Taylor, Ms. Alvarez, and certainly Ms. McLean and Ms. Ross for facilitating the work. We also just want to recognize all of the committee members. It was a very large group of people who were very committed and showed up and really gave us very thoughtful feedback throughout this process. So we want to thank them. And at this time, Ms. Wolf, I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Mr. Kim?
Could you clarify under status in the cross-level findings? Could you just speak a little more about the second calculation and what that looks like?
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, the second calculation under status, slide 7, cross-level findings. I just would like to hear more about what that looks like.
Sure. We talked about this a lot at the first couple meetings of the committee, and we went with kind of a formula of about 15 minutes to read the directions and to get Chromebooks logged on for the external assessment. So we went with that, but really knowing that the practices differ across schools.
Yeah, I find attachment E super informative, super appreciated, and definitely a necessary kind of outlook into how we approach how these assessments really interfere with instructional time. I think that the time to administer is kind of at the heart of it. That being said, I definitely agree that the hours considered, the hours vary from school to school. In my personal experience, I think some of these times might be a little less than generous. Maybe, in my experience, I've seen that test take a lot longer and may impede in the school day a little more. But again, I find this outlook necessary, and moving forward, I think there should be a real effort. I think some of the steps you all brought to us about finding best practices and promoting other schools to employ those as well is also super insightful and helpful. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Silvestri?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a great exercise. We hear a lot about less testing, more instruction time. It's definitely a worthwhile endeavor. And we also hear that the assessments that we want to highlight are the ones that are going to inform instruction. So of all of the assessments that you evaluated, which ones inform instruction in real time?
The extended writing prompt is a great example of an assessment that is not going to be included in the 2.2% because it's so curriculum embedded, and so the feedback, the work is being assessed as the students are creating it. There's a drafting process. It is a performance-based task, and so the teacher is getting real-time data as the students are completing it. District level assessments, like the end of unit assessments, do give quick data back. The teacher, as soon as they've graded it, has that data in their hands. However, it is more of a summative task, and so typically at the end of the unit, and so it does not inform the instruction as it is happening. But it is more readily available than our external data sources. The MAP assessments, you again get the score right away, and we can run reports on WEA that show the strengths and areas of need that the students have.
Great. Thank you. A lot of
Ms. Silvestri, can I just follow up on that? Because it's related to what I was going to ask. So first of all, amazing. This is one of the reasons I think MCPS is one of the best districts in the country, is you've not only come up with some very thoughtful recommendations, but it sounds like you're already acting on them, and that's really amazing. So my follow-up to what you were saying, Ms. Silvestri, is I'd be really curious, and this may be outside the mandate of your committee, you can tell me if this is a possibility down the road. My concern speaks to somewhat of what you just said, which is that a lot of these, like MAP, for example, can be super useful in terms of helping us understand student growth and where challenges are. But I guess my question is how much that actually happens. And the degree there's a second part of that question that I'm not exactly sure how to frame, but basically, if we're not using it very well or very effectively in some schools or in some classrooms, how can we look into how we might do so, or B, can we even start considering whether then it's even necessary to do it? I know assessments like that can be very helpful and very impactful, but only if we're creating sort of a continuous improvement process around them. And I'm not just here, but I'm skeptical in many places that that's actually the case.
And I think a really good example of that is the MAP test, which I had previously worked in middle schools, and the middle schools had learned over many years how to really effectively use that scoring. And at the high school level, where now ninth graders, and even last year, because of the trying to identify needs after COVID, 10th graders were taking it, and a lot of high schools were kind of like, well, what do we do with this data? They hadn't used it before. They didn't really know how to get into it. Actually, the Office of OSSI, but I know it has a new name. But the directors were doing I think some really good work with trying to support schools in how to analyze that data, how to really use that data to pick out where are the needs of your kids, and then get that into the hands of teachers so that they can really do that intervention work. That's an ongoing part of our school improvement process. Of once we have the data, what are we doing with it? Because we can look at data till the cows come home. If we don't change our instructional practices, it won't impact kids. And so that is real work that the school system is doing at all levels.
A lot of these assessments are now optional, or some of them are. Really? I mean, in what scenario who decides whether, okay, my school really does want to take them all? Is this your way of saying you don't have to do it? I mean, what does that mean, really?
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, I'll say on the topic of a lot of late quarter progress checks are marked as optional, and something that came up with my fellow students, Washide and Alani, was that these aren't optional. These are the teachers decide whether or not you take them. And so in my personal experience, it's more common than not for teachers to tell you to take them or to make your class take them. However, I have heard from teachers that we just don't have the time. At the end of the year, we have all these other assessments. Why would we deal with another one when, we can just wait until summer and get this data from the MCAPs, get this data from any of the other assessments that we have mandated for the fourth quarter. So I think that we focused in a little on that in our high school level work.
And we do find maybe more at the elementary level and then middle. Sheila's shaking her head, our math supervisor. We do actually have a fair number of schools that do give the optional assessments as more data, particularly for students that we are monitoring. And so it is certainly used, and we know that, for example, and I don't know if Ms. Berlinger, you want to add on, but we have some schools that are working to build the capacity of their staff around the content and instruction, and so they use those optional assessments as a check along the way to make sure that their students are making adequate progress. Ms. Berlinger, do you want to add on to that?
I'd love to. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for including me today. I would wholeheartedly support what Mrs. Hazel is saying. Many of our elementary schools, as they have dug deeper into the use and implementation of Eureka Math, have found that the assessment tools that align with instruction are continuing to inform instruction on a pretty regular basis. And there are many assessments beyond the handful that we require internally as our district assessment checks. Schools are using them more and more because the instruction tends to be a little bit more cyclical as well. And so what happens is teachers are able to use that information in real time in partnership with the data that comes out of an assessment such as MAP. Performance Matters has really raised our game in being able to do that, to have the data all in the same space. And the elementary math team has been committed to using Performance Matters as its vehicle for the administration of the assessments, allowing for teachers to see that student item analysis in real time and have some ability in order to do some reteaching and clarifying immediately following the opportunity for the assessment. So school by school, we're finding that they are making choices on their own to go well beyond what the district is requiring for some of these assessment tools.
Thank you. And my last question is about emergent multilingual learners, and if they are not included in this evaluation, because I want to understand why not. If this is a lot of testing for all our students, and then they have additional testing, which we saw outlined in the attachments, why isn't there relief for them?
And that specification is in the statute, in the law, that for purposes of the 2.2%, that any kind of testing related to federal law around emergent multilingual learners cannot be included.
Yeah, I don't understand.
So the 2.2% is for all students, the assessments that all of our students take. And so because that is a subset of our students, it doesn't count as a part of the 2.2%.
Don't you want to look at it anyway to see if there's some?
Yes, and so I think that is certainly an important comment, because we do know, and we've talked a lot about the fact that our students who are emergent multilingual learners take a lot of assessments. And so we have talked about how we can reduce that or look at how one assessment could inform what's happening with those students so that we're not over testing them. But it is a concern I know that was raised in the committee and that we talk about frequently. But it is not technically considered a part of the 2.2.
Well, I hope we can look at it in this upcoming year to try to find efficiencies and not over-test our students. Thank you.
I'd just like to add that also applies to 504 and IEP students. They also go through a lot more testing than our general population. And unfortunately, due to the statutes of the law, we can't include them in our calculations, but I do think that that is a very strong sentiment among teachers, among students, among community members, that we do need to be looking at this and identifying ways that we can lessen this burden on our ASOL specialists and our students. And I'd just like to thank you for bringing that up.
Ms. Evans.
Yes, I don't have a question. I just wanted to comment to say thank you to the committee. I really appreciate the presentation. But I love Ms. Ross. She reached for the mic to answer Ms. Silvestri's comment. And so I distinctly remember you back in December when we had our student leader meeting, and you are just a rising star. I love how we always elevate our student voice, but I don't know that we've ever made them a co-chair of a committee, have we? Right? And so it's just good to see you at the table and for the community to hear the input that you and your peers provide. So I just wanted to comment on that. You just never cease to amaze me, and I've been seeing you around a lot, and I just appreciate that you are here ready to respond to the questions that the board has. So just thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. And I'd like to double that for, I'm looking at the camera, Alani, Falashade, Maria, and Muktika. You all did such an amazing job, and I'm hoping that you come back next year. Not only do you come back next year, but we get more of your friends, we get more student leaders into this committee so that they can share their perspectives and their ideas, because they really did contribute a lot.
All right, thank you for an excellent report. It really was very informative. And I want to ditto Ms. Evans' comments to you. Thank you. At this time, we are up to item number 13, which is just information only. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I second that motion.
All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. So of course, I can't see Ms. Harris, but okay, it's unanimous, and thank you.